When I died, the sound of their cruel laughter still echoed in my ears. In my past life, I gave them everything, I saved them, I booked a 5-star hotel out of my own pocket to save our graduation trip from being completely ruined, and this was my reward. They trashed the place, blamed the thousands in damages on me, and watched with laughter as I was kicked out, penniless. The last thought in my mind as my car flew off that icy bridge was a suffocating regret, but then I opened my eyes. I wasn't dead. I was back on that stuffy bus in Rome, right before the nightmare began. This time, they could sleep on the streets. The first thing that hit me was the smell, a stifling mix of cheap spray deodorant, sour cream chips gone bad, and the distinct sourness of 30 sweaty teenagers trapped in a poorly ventilated space. I gasped, hands flying to my chest, fully expecting to feel the crushed steering wheel and searing pain, the sound of shattering glass piercing my eardrums, but all I felt was the soft fabric of my oversized hoodie. My heart hammered wildly, my ribs felt like trapped birds, frantic and restless. I blinked, my vision swimming through a haze of panic until the blurry shapes around me sharpened into something chillingly familiar. Right in front of me, Tyler Evans was laughing, tossing a piece of popcorn backward at someone's head. 2 rows ahead, Brittany Walsh was meticulously applying a coat of frosted pink lip gloss, pushing her designer sunglasses back into her blonde hair. Beside me, my so-called best friend Samantha Briggs was mindlessly scrolling through her phone, chewing gum loudly. I wasn't in my totaled Honda Civic, I was on the tour bus for the senior trip to Rome. Suddenly, a thought washed over me like a wave of ice water. May 14th, the day my life was completely destroyed. I stared at my trembling hands, young and unmarked, clutching my old iPhone. I had been reborn. God, the universe, or some twisted fate had hit rewind to understand the magnitude of the betrayal I suffered. You have to understand what happened the first time. We were just hours away from checking into our long-awaited hotel in Rome when our chaperone and history teacher, Mr. Harrison Cole, made a fatal mistake. He hadn't confirmed our reservation. The budget hostel we'd booked, which had promised 30 beds, had given them away to another group of travelers. We were stranded during peak tourist season with nowhere to go. In my past life, Mr. Cole was practically begging for help, tears of panic welling in his pitiful eyes. Back then, I was a naive, renting newbie who volunteered. My uncle, Richard Jenkins, was the regional manager of a massive, luxurious 5-star hotel in the city center, the Grand Excelsior. I called him in tears, begging him to pull some strings, because he loved me. He bypassed company policy, kicked out a few minor VIPs, and secured 15 adjoining rooms for us. He even paid the deposit out of his own pocket, trusting me completely. And how did my classmates repay his immense kindness? Brittany Walsh treated my uncle's generosity as her personal playground. The next night, while Mr. Cole was passed out drunk at the hotel bar, Brittany threw a wild party. She invited a group of local college students she'd met in the piazza. They smuggled cheap liquor and smoked in the pristine rooms. Their sense of superiority culminated when Tyler and his friends decided to wrestle in the living room of my suite. They crashed into a 17th century reproduction table, completely shattering a genuine, hand-blown Murano glass vase worth over $15,000. When hotel security finally broke in, they found a flooded bathroom, a scorched carpet, and a scene of utter chaos with screams echoing everywhere. When the dust settled and the astronomical bill was presented, the cowards revealed their true colors. Brittany, with tears in her eyes, told hotel management and the school board that I had organized the party and charged them an entry fee. Tyler corroborated her story. My best friend Samantha looked down at the ground and nodded along. But what truly sealed the deal was Mr. Harrison Cole. To save his job and pension, he claimed I had forged his signature behind his back. The hotel's liability waiver explicitly prohibited him from viewing the room. My uncle Richard was nearly fired and never spoke to me again. My parents, overwhelmed by the sudden debt I had incurred, looked at me with a disgust I could never erase. I was expelled weeks before graduation, and my college acceptance was revoked. This rejection plunged me into a deep depression, which ultimately peaked on that dark, snowy night when my tires lost traction on the bridge. The piercing screech of the bus microphone jolted me back to reality. I looked toward the front of the bus. Mr. Cole stood there, Nervous sweat beading on his forehead and soaking through his cheap blue button-down shirt, he held the microphone, his hands trembling. Slightly, I leaned back against the rough fabric of the bus seat. A cold smile slowly crept across my lips. It begins, this time, I won't be their savior or their scapegoat. This time, I'm part of the audience. Listen up, everyone, quiet. Mr. Cole's voice came through the bus's cheap, tinny speakers, laced with a near-hysterical anxiety. The low chatter among the teenagers faded, replaced by a chorus of annoyed sighs. Brittany put her lip gloss back into her designer purse and crossed her arms. Hurry up, Mr. Cole, the AC in this tin can is terrible, and I need a shower before we hit the Trevi fountain. Cole swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing erratically. Okay, we've hit a bit of a snag with our itinerary. What kind of snag? Tyler asked, leaning forward. It seems, Mr. Cole stammered, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand. There was a miscommunication with the Bella Roma hostel. They didn't receive our final confirmation deposit. Dead silence filled the bus. For a few seconds, the only sound was the rumble of the engine as the vehicle navigated Rome's chaotic traffic. Then, the explosion. What? They didn't get the deposit, Brittany shrieked, jumping up. Where are we supposed to sleep? I'm working on a solution, Mr. Cole protested, but he shrank back under the glare of 30 furious high school graduates. The hostel is fully booked. They gave our rooms to a choral orchestra from Germany. I've been on the phone with the travel agency, but what? Tyler roared. But, it's peak season, Mr. Cole admitted, his voice dropping to a miserable whisper, and there's an international tech expo in the city this week. All the booths are booked, or at least, everything is within the school-approved budget. The bus erupted into chaos. Girls began to cry, boys started shouting curses. The air suddenly thickened with a suffocating sense of panic. Rome is a beautiful city, but for a group of sheltered teenagers realizing they're about to be homeless, stranded in a foreign country suddenly feels like falling into a very dangerous trap. Samantha grabbed my arm beside me. Her eyes were wide with panic. Felicia, oh my God, what are we going to do? I looked down at her hands clutching my sleeve, and a wave of intense disgust washed over me. In my past life, those hands had carefully drafted a statement for the principal, selling me out to save herself. Suspension. I gently but firmly pried her fingers off my arm. I don't know, Sam, sounds like Mr. Cole really messed up. A flicker of desperate, wild hope suddenly flashed in her eyes. Wait, your Uncle Richard, doesn't he run that super luxury hotel near the Spanish Steps? What's it called? Right there, on the queue line. In my past life, this was the moment I foolishly puffed out my chest, eager to play the hero, desperate to impress Brittany and her clique of snobs. I looked straight into Samantha's eyes, my face a mask of calm indifference. Uncle Richard, oh, he transferred. Samantha blinked in confusion. Transferred where? Tokyo, I lied effortlessly. My voice smooth, without a hint of hesitation. He's managing a boutique hotel in Shibuya now. Even if he weren't working there, my parents have restricted my international roaming data. My phone is basically a brick right now unless I can connect to Wi-Fi. To demonstrate, I held up my phone and tapped a few times on the black screen. Samantha felt the blood drain from her cheeks. She turned and shouted to the panicking crowd. Everyone, Felicia's uncle isn't in Italy anymore. He can't help us. At the front of the bus, Mr. Cole, who had been listening with a faint glimmer of pathetic hope, visibly deflated, he had known about my uncle all along. He had been praying I'd bail him out. Watching his shoulders slump in defeat was more intoxicating than any fine wine. Are you kidding me? Brittany shrieked, whirling around to glare at me as if my uncle's fictional transfer was a personal affront. Felicia, why didn't you mention this sooner? Mention what? I replied calmly, popping a piece of gum into my mouth. My uncle has his own career. Why would I track his career? We were supposed to be staying in hostels. Arranging accommodations isn't my job. Brittany's face flushed an ugly crimson. You're useless, she spat, then stormed over to Mr. Cole, jabbing a finger at his chest as she went. Listen, you incompetent freak. My father is a corporate lawyer. If I end up on the streets in a foreign country, he'll sue you for everything you have. He'll take your house. Mr. Cole held up his hands in surrender. Brittany, please. Threatening me isn't going to magically produce 30 beds, then find a hotel, she screamed. I can't, anything over $90 a night, I need authorization on the school credit card, he yelled, finally cracking under the pressure. A single room alone is over $400 now. Brittany, do you have 12,000 euros on hand? That question silenced her for a full 3 seconds. The harshness of reality finally jolted them. Awake, the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows over the ancient buildings outside the bus window. Rome's romantic dusk swiftly gave way to the city's terrifying darkness, where they had no shelter, no connections, and no savior. I leaned against the cold bus window, crossed my legs, and smiled. The bus suddenly lurched to a halt. The force of the explosion sent half the standing students tumbling into their seats. Up front sat the driver, a burly, dark-skinned Italian, a man named Jep stood up and roughly slapped the door lock button. The hydraulic door hissed open, and a wave of hot, humid night air rushed in. Tutti fuori, Jep roared, his voice drowning out the teenagers' cries. He pointed a rough finger toward the sidewalk. Everyone out. Excuse me, Brittany gasped, clutching her pearl necklace tightly. It was really happening. You can't just kick us out. We don't have a hotel. Jep glared at her. Unfazed by her designer tantrum, he turned to Mr. Cole, speaking in broken, heavily accented English. My shift is over. The bus is going back to the station. You take your luggage. Get off now. Okay, please, be reasonable, Mr. Cole pleaded, wringing his hands together like a beggar. We have nowhere to go. Just let us stay. We need to sit on the bus for a few more hours while I make some calls. No, Jep said bluntly. Company rules. No passengers in the station. Out. Or I call the police. The threat of foreign law enforcement involvement shattered what little resolve Mr. Cole had left. He turned dejectedly to the class. Everyone grab your bags. We're disembarking. The ensuing groans and wail-like cries sounded like music to my ears. I casually picked up my small backpack and hard-shell suitcase and stepped off the bus without a single complaint. I stepped onto the cobblestone sidewalk of Rome's bustling square. Waves of heat radiated from the stones, but I felt a cool, refreshing breeze of victory. In less than 10 minutes, Jep had unloaded all 30 oversized suitcases onto the curb and jumped back into the driver's seat. He slammed on the gas and sped off, leaving a cloud of diesel exhaust behind. We were completely stranded, 30 high school graduates, clad in matching neon green, class of 26, t-shirts, huddled together on the street corner like a flock of birds, a herd of lost, particularly loud sheep. Passing locals gave us a wide berth, their faces a mix of annoyance and pity. This is absolutely insane, Tyler Evans growled. Kicking the side of a duffel bag, he turned to Mr. Cole, using his imposing height to intimidate the shorter teacher. Cole, fix this. Now I've missed my optimal protein window. I refuse to sleep on concrete. I'm trying, Tyler, Mr. Cole snapped, his voice trembling as he frantically swiped through his phone. I'm looking for anything. A YMCA, a church, a train station locker room, a church, Brittany shrieked, looking as if she might genuinely faint. I don't want to sleep on a wooden bench. I need a real mattress. My lumbar spine is fragile. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. Move aside, Cole. Clearly, you're an idiot. I'll handle this. She put the phone to her ear. When the phone rang, she impatiently tapped her foot on the ground while switching to speakerphone. Hello, this is the Waldorf Historic Hotel in Rome. Yes, I need a suite, or actually 15 rooms, tonight. After a moment of silence, a polite yet slightly teasing Italian concierge voice came through the speaker. Miss, we are fully booked. We've been fully booked for 6 months. Even if there were rooms available, the rate would be 1,200 euros per night per room. Well, check your cancellations, Brittany demanded. We have no cancellations. Have a pleasant evening. The line went dead abruptly. Brittany stared at her phone, her jaw nearly dropping. The entire class watched her, their last shred of hope vanishing with her expression. Well, Samantha asked, her voice trembling as tears finally spilled over. What did they say? They hung up on me, just like that, Brittany whispered, looking genuinely bewildered for the first time in her privileged life. Panic is setting in. Primitive, the carefully packaged upbringing we'd received in private schools began to unravel violently. This is all your fault. Taylor shouted, pointing a thick finger at Brittany. You said you could fix it. You distracted him from looking for cheaper places. Me, Brittany shrieked, her voice echoing off the ancient stone buildings. How is this my fault? Cole forgot to pay the damn deposit. Blame him. I submitted the paperwork to the administration. Mr. Cole defended himself, his face turning purple with anger. It's the travel agency's fault for messing up the shuttle arrangements. I don't care whose fault it is. I just need to pee. Another girl yelled from the back of the carriage. The crowd, go find an alley. Taylor snapped. I dragged my hard-shell suitcase over to a stone bench under the shade of a nearby large oak tree. I sat down, making myself comfortable. I unzipped the front pocket of my backpack and pulled out a large bag of gummy bears. I opened the bag with a satisfying pop. Samantha shuffled over, sniffling, her eyes red and puffy as she looked at me. Felicia, how can you eat right now? We're going to get robbed. We're going to die here. I thoughtfully popped a red gummy bear into my mouth and chewed. Sam, this is Rome, not a war zone. I watched Taylor and Mr. Cole, pointing at the center of the crowd, where Taylor had grabbed Mr. Cole by the collar, demanding he book them any single rooms he could find in the city with his own credit card. Mr. Cole swatted Taylor's hand away while loudly threatening to sue him for assault. Lou, this might turn into assault pretty soon. I swallowed the candy. We should try sneaking into the hotel lobby. One of the boys, a quiet kid named Mark, nervously suggested. Just sit down and pretend we're waiting for our parents. Desperation makes people stupid. Led by a newly emboldened Brittany, 10 students grabbed their backpacks and headed toward the brightly lit elegant hotel lobby across the square. I watched them go in, ready for the show. I knew exactly what would happen next. You don't walk into a high-end European hotel drenched in sweat, wearing fluorescent shirts like a pack of ragged strays, and expect a warm welcome. Less than 4 minutes later, the hotel's automatic doors slid open. Brittany and her companion stumbled backward onto the street, forcibly escorted by 3 expressionless, burly Italian security guards in crisp black suits. Don't touch me, Brittany yelled, tripping over her own suitcase. A guard pointed a finger at her, speaking in sharp, rapid Italian, then gestured toward the street, signaling them to move along. They were lost. They trudged back to our group with weary steps, looking like defeated captives. They wouldn't even let us use the lobby restroom, Brittany cried out, finally breaking down into hysterical sobs, her mascara streaking down her cheeks in muddy trails. That guard pushed me. He actually pushed me. Well, maybe that knocked some sense into you, Taylor muttered under his breath. Shut up, Taylor, Samantha screamed, her panic suddenly turning outward. Just then, the sun finally disappeared behind the ancient skyline. The lights of Rome bathed our little square in the orange glow of street lamps, and reality descended over them like a suffocating blanket. No beds, no showers, no rescue. Accusations escalated into vicious personal attacks. Conflict erupted. Secrets were shouted out in frustration. Taylor called Brittany a spoiled brat. Brittany told Taylor everyone knew he'd failed math and was about to lose his athletic scholarship. Mr. Cole sat on his suitcase, face buried in his hands, having completely abandoned his role as the adult, the guardian. I sat comfortably on the edge of the chaos, the cool evening breeze brushing against my skin. In my past life, I would have cried with them, frantically dialed my uncle's number, sacrificed my own peace for their sake, comfort. But as I watched Brittany slap Taylor's arm and Mr. Cole start hyperventilating into a paper bag he'd found in his luggage, I felt a pang of sadness. I realized something beautiful. Revenge doesn't always require action. Sometimes, the most vicious payback is simply stepping aside and letting karma handle it. I crossed my legs, popped another gummy into my mouth, and let their symphony of misery wash over me. By 9 p.m., the romantic allure of Rome had completely vanished, replaced by a harsh, unforgiving reality. The temperature hadn't dropped to freezing, but it was low enough that sweat had soaked through the neon green class of 26 t-shirts. The shirts began to cling to shivering skin, turning damp and cold. Hunger was the first real trigger for the madness that followed. We hadn't eaten since a barely edible sandwich at a highway rest stop hours earlier. I'm starving, Jessica, a girl who always trailed Brittany like a shadow, moaned, clutching her stomach. Mr. Cole, you have to get us food. It's illegal to starve minors. Cole looked up from his phone screen, the blue light reflecting the sheer terror in his eyes. His battery hovered at 10%, his power bank was buried deep in his suitcase, and he was too exhausted to dig it out. I have 50 euros in petty cash, he mumbled. That's not enough for 30 of you in the city center. I'm looking for a grocery store that's still open. 50 euros, Taylor snapped, stepping forward and kicking a stray cobblestone hard. My parents paid $4,000 for this trip. Cole, where did that money go? It went to flights, tour fees, and the lost deposit. Mister, Cole let out a strangled scream, his voice hoarse with strain. I don't have access to the school's main account. God, I'm just a history teacher. As they shouted at each other, I stood quietly. I rose from the stone bench. For the past hour, I'd been observing our surroundings, relying on my memory of geography, past and present lives. Right across the square, wedged between a high-end leather goods store and a shuttered gelateria, was a tiny, warmly lit estaminet, a 24-hour cafe. I knew from previous experience that it was a haven for university students pulling all-nighters, equipped with potent espresso, decent pastries, and most importantly, high-speed Wi-Fi and a strict paying customers-only policy. I gripped my suitcase handle and slung my backpack over my shoulder. Samantha noticed my movement immediately. Felicia, where are you going? You can't just wander off. It's dark. I'm going for dinner, I stated flatly. The entire group fell silent. 30 pairs of eyes, filled with hunger and desperation, snapped toward me. Dinner. Brittany repeated the word, her tone a dangerous mix of incredulity and entitlement. You just said your uncle got transferred where? With what money? Yes, I replied, shifting my grip on my luggage, but I have my own debit card. Brittany, I work weekends at a bookstore, remember, my spending money is my own, then you can buy us pizza. Tyler puffed out his chest as if he could intimidate me into handing over my wallet. Money is meant to be shared, he declared. We're a team. I actually laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound that echoed off the stone buildings. Tyler, yesterday you told the entire class I looked like a drowned rat after the rain. And Brittany, you spent so much time complaining about my luggage taking up too much cargo space the entire trip. So, no, we are not a team. You've been bullying me for 4 solid years. Have a lovely evening. I turned my back and walked straight toward the cafe's warm, glowing sign. You selfish, __. Brittany shrieked after me. Felicia, please. Samantha's voice was high and pleading. I'm your best friend. Don't leave me here. I didn't even turn around. In my previous life, my best friend had sat in the principal's office. She swore she saw me forge Mr. Cole's signature with her own eyes. I pushed open the cafe's glass door, a cheerful bell chiming overhead, and stepped into a quiet oasis of roasted coffee beans and air conditioning. I ordered a large cappuccino and a panini stuffed with prosciutto and mozzarella from the gruff owner, a polite barista named Giovanni. I paid in cash, left a generous tip, and hauled my bags to a small table off to the side. Through the front window, I had a perfect, cinema-like view of the square in all its glory. I took a slow, deliberate bite of the hot, crispy panini, the melted cheese pulled in perfect strings. It tasted like absolute victory. Outside, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. They realized I wasn't coming back to save them. Tyler, driven by low blood sugar and toxic masculinity, decided to take matters into his own hands. I watched through the glass as he rallied his 4 jock friends, Brandon, Chris, Liam, and Wyatt. They left their luggage with the girls and marched toward a brightly lit tourist trap restaurant across the street. 10 minutes later, the entertainment continued. Tyler and his crew were forcibly ejected from the restaurant's patio by 2 burly waiters wielding menus as weapons. From his exaggerated gestures, I gathered Tyler had tried to sit at a reserved table, demanded free tap water and bread baskets, and ordered nothing of actual substance. The Italians, notoriously intolerant of rude tourists, had unceremoniously tossed them back out on the street. In retaliation, Taylor threw a plastic water bottle at the restaurant's awning while shouting curses. This immediately caught the attention of a group of nearby loitering local teenagers, who began mocking the angry American in rapid, sharp Italian. Taylor puffed out his chest and strode toward them, and for a moment, I thought I was about to witness his nose being broken. But Mr. Cole finally showed a hint of authority. Rushing over, grabbing Taylor, and dragging him away, a street brawl could erupt at any moment. I took a sip of my cappuccino. The foam on top was sweet and creamy. By midnight, the mood among the trapped seniors had shifted from initial panic to a hollow, whimpering despair. The fluorescent green shirts were no longer symbols of school pride but emblems of their collective suffering. The students had completely abandoned the idea of spreading their jackets on the dirty, pigeon-dropping stained cobblestones to sleep. Their massive suitcases formed a pitiful barrier. Around them, Brittany Walsh was sitting on her hard-shell suitcase. She dragged it along, frantically typing on her phone while plugged into a power bank, tears continuously streaking her expensive makeup. In the cafe, I was happily browsing downloaded ebooks while eating tiramisu. The cafe was quiet, mostly filled with locals quietly studying or reading. Suddenly, there was a frantic tapping on the glass right next to my head. I turned to see Samantha's face pressed tightly against the window, her breath fogging up the glass. She looked terrible. Her hair was a tangled mess, her eyes were red and swollen, and she was trembling all over. She gestured frantically, pleading with me to let her in. I sighed, put down my fork, and stood up. I walked to the cafe entrance and cracked the door open. A wave of damp, exhaust-scented air rushed in, a stark contrast to the climate-controlled paradise behind me. Thankfully, it was Felicia. Samantha gasped and tried to squeeze inside. I firmly blocked the doorway with my shoulder. "What do you want, Sam? Let me in," she sobbed, her voice lowered to a near whisper to avoid Giovanni yelling at her. "It's freezing out here. Those guys are talking about breaking into the apartment building's stairwell, and there are some weirdos on motorcycles circling the square." "Felicia, are you occupying an entire table by yourself? This cafe only serves paying customers," I said softly, my voice devoid of the warmth she so desperately craved. "Do you have any cash in euros, or a bank card without foreign transaction fees?" Samantha swallowed hard, her eyes darting around. "No, my mom told me not to bring cash. She said Mr. Cole had everything arranged." "Felicia, buy me a glass of water, the cheapest thing on the menu. If you buy me water, I can sit with you." I looked at her. I looked at the girl who had borrowed my clothes, eaten my food, and then happily watched me get expelled to save herself. "I could do that," I said slowly. A wave of relief instantly washed over her face. "Oh, thank you, Felicia. I knew you wouldn't. But I won't." I cut her off, my words falling like a guillotine. The relief vanished, replaced by utter shock. "What? Why?" "Because, Samantha, you're not my friend," I said, my voice low and steady. "You only like me when I'm useful to you. You're only talking to me now because you're desperate. If you were in a 5-star hotel right now, you'd be in Brittany's room laughing at my shoes." "Serves you right. Good night." "You're a psycho," she hissed, shock turning to venom. "You're a monster. I'm going to tell everyone how you left us here to die." "Say whatever you want," I sneered. "I really don't care anymore." I slammed the door shut, locking it from the inside with a satisfying click. Barista Giovanni caught my eye from behind the espresso machine. He gave a slight nod of understanding. He'd seen enough cheap tourists in his lifetime to know exactly what was happening outside. I went back to my tiramisu. Around 1:30 a.m., Mr. Harrison Cole's cowardly nature was fully exposed. I watched from the window as he quietly zipped up his small rolling briefcase. He glanced around furtively, confirming most students were either dozing on the sidewalk or distracted by their phones. Then he began to slowly, very slowly, inch away from the group, retreating into the shadows of an alley. He was trying to abandon them. In my past life, oblivious, I'd been crying. I was on the phone with my uncle, but now I had a front row seat to this pathetic farce. Mr. Cole had likely found a single room in a cheap hotel nearby, maybe a 1-star dump, and decided to save himself, leaving the 30 minors to fend for themselves. On the streets of Rome, he'd made it about 30 yards when the hard plastic suitcase wheels hit a deep rut in the cobblestones. The case toppled with a loud crack, popping open and spilling his neatly folded khakis and a stash of protein bars he'd been hiding across the street. The noise woke Tyler, who'd been struggling to sleep on a stone bench. Tyler sat up, rubbing his eyes, and saw Mr. Cole frantically shoving protein bars back into the case on the ground. "Hey," Tyler shouted, his voice echoing in the quiet night. Where the hell are you going? Everyone jolted awake, panic instantly rippling through them. I was scouting for a bathroom, mister, Cole stammered, his face pale under the orange streetlight. With your luggage, Brittany shrieked, scrambling off her suitcase. She marched toward him, exhaustion completely replaced by fury. You're leaving us, you were sneaking away. I'm an adult, mister, Cole suddenly screamed, his own panic finally erupting into unhinged aggression. I have sleep apnea, I can't sleep on concrete. I found a room across the street, a single bed. I was going to come back for you all in the morning, Jessica wailed, bursting into fresh sobs. You're our chaperone. You can't leave us here, this is illegal. I'm calling my parents. Call them, mister. Cole yelled back, having shed all professional decorum. Have them fly over and fix it. I'm done. I don't get paid enough to babysit a bunch of spoiled, ungrateful brats who complain about everything. He turned to run, abandoning the spilled suitcase, but Tyler and Brandon rushed forward, blocking his path. Tyler grabbed Mr. Cole by the shoulders, shoving him roughly back toward the center of the piazza. You're not going anywhere. You pathetic coward, you're not going anywhere, Tyler roared. Spittle flying from his mouth. You got us into this mess, you stay here. If we sleep on the ground, you sleep on the ground. The noise is deafening. At 2 a.m., 30 teenagers and a mentally unstable teacher are screaming their lungs out in a densely populated area, a historic residential neighborhood. I lean closer to the glass, a genuine smile touching the corner of my mouth. They are in tears, isolated from each other. The rules of civilized society have vanished, leaving only the primal law of the jungle. This mindset, and Mr. Cole, the man who in my previous life sold me out so easily to protect his pension, is now being forcibly restrained by his own furious students. But all this shouting has consequences. At 2:15 a.m., flashing blue lights illuminate the ancient stone, the walls of the piazza. Two sleek, dark blue Alfa Romeo patrol cars screech to a halt beside the massive pile of junk. Student luggage, the doors fly open, and four Italian carabinieri step out. They are dressed in immaculate, intimidating uniforms, complete with pistols, white crossbelts, and expressions of cold, detached authority, tolerance. The heated argument between Mr. Cole and Tyler stops instantly. The entire class freezes, eyes wide. A wave of fear washes over them as the large, imposing officers approach. One of them, a tall man with sharp features and graying hair at his temples, steps forward. He raises a hand, silencing the whispers before they can begin. Documenti, he demands in a low, authoritative voice, now trembling. Mr. Cole looks like he's having a seizure as he fumbles for his passport from his jacket pocket. Officer, we are a school trip from America. We lost our hotel booking and have nowhere to go. The officer snatches the passport, glances at it, then glares at Mr. Cole. You are responsible for these matches and these children. Yes, but you let them howl like animals in the night, waking the neighbors. We have received 20 complaints. He complains about the noise. The officer's English is heavily accented but perfectly understandable, making his anger even more terrifying. This is not our fault. Brittany suddenly interjects, pushing her way to the front. Even now, exhausted and filthy, her nauseating sense of superiority shows no sign of fading. She points a manicured finger at Mr. Cole. He lost the money. We are all victims. You should be helping us find a 5-star hotel, not harassing us. The officer slowly turns his gaze to Brittany. He looks at her as if she were a fascinating yet particularly repulsive insect. Signorina, he says, his voice dangerously soft. Loitering in a public piazza, disturbing public order, is a crime. I do not care about your hotel. I care that you are breaking the law in my city. My father is a lawyer. Brittany, completely misreading the room, lets out a shriek. You can't talk to me like that. I demand to speak to the American embassy. The officer doesn't even blink. He unclips his radio from his belt and speaks rapidly in Italian. Within seconds, 3 more officers swiftly move in, surrounding the group. Tutti, passaporti, the lead officer commands, no longer asking. Disturbing public order carries a fine of €500 per person. If you cannot pay, you will be detained at the station until your embassy completes the necessary procedures. The students collectively gasp. The sound loud enough to be heard through the thick cafe glass. 500 euros, Samantha wails, dropping to her knees. I don't have that kind of money, we're teenagers. Then the guardian pays, the officer said coldly, glancing back at Mr. Cole. Either 15,000, or you all come with us. Mr. Cole looked as if his soul had departed forever, his body seemed drained, he slumped onto an abandoned suitcase, breathing heavily. I don't have 15,000, I don't. Taylor, realizing the gravity of the situation, finally dropped his tough guy facade. He raised his hands and backed away from the police. I didn't do anything. It was him. He tried to run. Sensio, an officer barked sharply, pointing sternly at Taylor. Inside the Mezzanat Cafe, I watched the beautiful, chaotic dance of karma unfold. The Carabinieri began methodically confiscating passports and recording names in what appeared to be official citation books. Some students wept uncontrollably, others anxiously tried calling their parents, only to find that the time difference meant it was now evening rush hour back in the US, and many calls went straight to voicemail. They would face hefty international fines. Mr. Cole would have a criminal record in Italy, almost certainly leading to his dismissal upon returning to the US, if he wasn't arrested for negligence first. Brittany threatened to get a lawyer, but those who dealt with real criminals daily scoffed at the idea. I took the last bite of tiramisu, savoring the rich cocoa powder and mascarpone. Wiping my mouth with a napkin, I closed my e-reader, leaned back in my chair, and watched dawn slowly arrive. By 5 a.m., the sky over Rome began to lighten, shifting from deep purple to a soft pink. The streetlights went out. The Carabinieri had been there for hours, painstakingly processing everything. They issued a slew of tickets to the students and solemnly declared that if they were found sleeping in the square again, they would face severe penalties. They would be arrested. Eventually, they drove off, leaving the entire class heavily fined and still homeless. At 6 in the morning, Giovanni opened the cafe's front door. Beginning the morning rush, I stood up and stretched, reaching for my luggage. I felt refreshed. The air conditioning was perfect, the food delicious, the entertainment unparalleled. I stepped out of the cafe into the cool morning air of the square. The scene before me resembled a battlefield. 30 teenagers lay slumped on their luggage, dirty, silently crying, their expensive clothes stained, clutching their inability to pay the Italian police fines. Mr. Cole sat on the curb, head buried in his knees, motionless. I walked straight past them. The wheels of my suitcase glided smoothly over the cobblestones. A rhythmic click-clack cut through their silent suffering. Samantha looked up, her face smeared with dirt and dried tears. She stepped out of the cafe, glanced at me, looking radiant, refreshed, and content. Felicia, she whispered in a hoarse, broken voice. Where are you going? Where are you headed? I paused, adjusted my sunglasses as the morning light washed over my face. I looked back at the wreckage left by those who had once ruined my life. I said lightly, I booked a train to Florence. I hear the art galleries are lovely this season. Good luck explaining the police findings to the school board. Mr. Cole, without waiting for a response, I turned and walked toward the taxi stand at the end of the street, leaving them to face the consequences. The nightmare of my past life had been completely rewritten. I survived, and they were finally going to pay. The Frecciarasa high-speed train shot through the lush, sun-drenched Tuscan countryside like a silver bullet. I sat in the comfortable, air-conditioned window seat, a complimentary espresso on the table before me. I rested my tray table, watching the rolling hills and distant vineyards drift by. My phone lay face down on the table, right next to my cup. It had been vibrating non-stop for the past 2 hours. It only stopped when I finally arrived in Florence and disembarked at the Santa Maria Novella station. The contrast with the previous 24 hours was jarring. No screaming, no panic, no pungent scent of desperate teenagers, just the beautiful, bustling energy of a city steeped in Renaissance history. I hailed a taxi, sipping a cappuccino as I handed the driver the address of the highly rated, moderately priced Airbnb I'd booked online. In Rome, after checking in, I made my way to my room, a quaint little sanctuary with exposed wooden beams and a window overlooking a quiet cobblestone courtyard. I finally flipped over my phone. The digital spectacle was glorious. The senior WhatsApp group, originally named Rome 26 Woo, had morphed into a digital war zone. By now, the sun was rising on the east coast of the US. Thanks to the time difference, parents were awake. They were trying to figure out what the hell had happened to their precious darlings. I scrolled through the most missed. Every gut-wrenching update. It all started with a video. Mark, the kid who usually sat quietly in the back of class taking pictures, had apparently kept his cool enough to hit record during the 1:30 a.m. parking lot brawl. The footage was shaky, poor quality, the lighting was terrible, but the audio was crystal clear. It showed Mr. Cole, his suitcase damaged. He was yelling, complaining about not getting paid enough, not having money for Bratz dolls. And then Tyler immediately shoved him, shouting profanities. Below the video, the comments came in like machine gun fire. Pure, unadulterated panic. Samantha 6:12 a.m. My mom isn't answering. The police fined me €500. They said I can't fly home if I don't pay before I leave. Jessica 6:15 a.m. Mr. Cole isn't talking to anyone. He's just sitting on his bag crying. Someone please call the embassy. Brandon 6:30 a.m. Tyler's dad just called. He's freaking out. Tyler, your dad says don't talk to the Italian police anymore without a lawyer present. Tyler 6:35 a.m. How the hell am I supposed to find a lawyer in Rome at 6 a.m.? Then, the parents infiltrated the chat. Somehow, Principal Higgins got the alert, and the school's emergency communication system kicked in, but it did nothing to calm things. In this case, the adult intervention only poured gasoline on the fire. Brittany's father, Thomas Walsh, 7:00 a.m. This is unacceptable. I'm contacting the State Department. My daughter is sleeping on the street right now. Harrison Cole, you are personally responsible for this. You are finished. I couldn't help but laugh. The sound echoing in the quiet Florence room. Thomas Walsh was a cutthroat corporate lawyer, exactly the type who would try to sue a foreign country for inconveniencing his daughter. In my previous life, he had used his legal connections to ensure I took the fall for that hotel, damaging Brittany's pristine record. Now, all his money and power were useless against the rigid, indifferent Italian bureaucracy, the Carabinieri. I decided it was time to make my presence known. I didn't want anyone thinking I was missing or on the run, in danger. I want them to know exactly where I am. I took a selfie, standing by the open window, the beautiful Tuscan sun shining on my face, looking refreshed, clean, tidy, and at peace. I sent it to the group chat with a simple caption. Felicia 10:15 a.m. safely arrived in Florence. Found a lovely little band B near the Duomo. Hope your hotel situation gets sorted soon. Stay safe. For 3 whole minutes, the chat was dead silent. My message was so audacious. It seemed to have stunned them all. Then the explosion came. Brittany 10:18 a.m. Are you insane? We're literally starving on the street and you're on vacation. Taylor 10:19 a.m. You selfish witch. Get back here and pay the fine. You have the money. Samantha 10:20 a.m. Felicia, how could you do this to us? To me, before they could swarm me. My phone screen switched to an incoming call. The caller ID read, Mom. I took a deep breath, instantly shifting from resentful mastermind to panicked, responsible daughter. I answered on the second ring. Mom, I said, with just the right amount of breathlessness and tremor in my voice. Felicia, oh my God, baby, are you okay? Mom's voice was frantic, choked with tears. Principal Higgins just sent a message, an emergency automated voicemail saying the Rome trip is off. The kids have no hotel. The police are involved. Where are you? Are you with the group? Mom, I'm safe. I'm in Florence. I rushed on, needing to control the narrative before Principal Higgins or Mr. Cole could twist it. Mom, it was horrible. Mr. Cole completely messed up the hotel booking. We were left on the street. The other kids went crazy. What do you mean, crazy? She gasped. They tried to break into a restaurant. Taylor Evans actually attacked Mr. Cole. The Carabinieri showed up with guns. Mom, they started handing out huge fines. I was terrified. I couldn't risk getting arrested. I knew I couldn't stay there. I used the money from my bookstore job to buy a train ticket to Florence and booked a safe, comfortable room. I didn't know what else to do. Dead silence on the other end. I could hear Dad in the background demanding to know what was happening. When Mom spoke again, the panic was replaced by fierce protectiveness. Felicia, you did the right thing. Oh my God, You did absolutely the right thing. If those kids are breaking the law, you had to get away from them. Don't go back to Rome. Stay in your room. Your father and I are calling the airline to change your flight to leave from Florence or Milan. Thank you, Mom, I whispered, letting a single, genuine tear of relief escape. In my past life, these people had looked at me with disgust, believing the lies Brittany and Mr. Cole fed them. This time, I was the smart, responsible one who escaped a dangerous mob. We love you, baby, lock your door, we'll handle the school. My dad shouted into the receiver, the call disconnected. I smiled, tossing my phone onto the soft duvet of the bed. I felt invincible. By the afternoon, I was sitting at a tiny outdoor cafe near the Ponte Vecchio, enjoying a plate of fresh pappardelle al cinghiale, when my phone buzzed. Another call, an unsaved number, but with the area code of the affluent suburb where Brittany Walsh lived. I was alive. I slowly took a sip of sparkling water, clicked accept, and then pressed the record button on the screen recording app. Hello, Felicia. This is Thomas Walsh, Brittany's father. The voice was low and gravelly, carrying a chilling mix of suppressed anger and authority. That kind of voice often made receptionists and junior colleagues wet their pants. Hello, Mr. Walsh, I replied politely, twirling a strand of spaghetti with my fork. I'll get straight to the point, he snapped. Brittany just told me you've withdrawn from the group. More importantly, she told me you have a personal debit card with a substantial balance. Not only have you failed to contribute funds, but you've also blatantly refused to help your classmates arrange emergency accommodations. Mr. Walsh, I've saved up some money from minimum wage weekend gigs. I certainly don't have the funds to house 30 people in central Rome during peak tourist season. Don't play games with me, little girl, he growled softly. You're on a school-organized trip. You have a moral and collective responsibility to your peers. Now, I'm currently negotiating with the bank's fraud department to lift the international transaction freeze on Brittany's credit card, but that will take a few hours. I expect you to wire your money to Brittany immediately so she can book a room at the Marriott. I'll reimburse your parents when you return. I actually had to cover my mouth to keep a laugh from escaping. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. Mr. Walsh, I said, shedding the polite facade and letting my newly forged, cold, hard spine show. Let me make myself perfectly clear. Your daughter mocked my clothes for the entire flight. She complained about my presence the whole way. And, your daughter is 17 years old. She's about to be an adult. She turns 18 in 2 months. I am not her guardian, nor her travel agent, and certainly not her personal ATM. Listen here, you little. No, you listen. I cut him off, dropping my voice an octave. I was forced to flee the group because your daughter and her friends were screaming at the Italian carabinieri in the middle of the night. I have video evidence of Tyler Evans assaulting a teacher. I have removed myself from a hostile and unlawful environment. If anyone attempts to extort money from a minor again, I will forward this recorded call to the Florence Police Department and the U.S. Embassy. He sputtered something about harassment. The silence on the other end of the line was thick and suffocating. Thomas Walsh was a shark, but he was used to swimming with other sharks, not a teenager who knew how to legally cut off his head. Have a pleasant afternoon, Mr. Walsh. Good luck with the Marriott. I chirped brightly and hung up. Back in Rome, the situation had officially reached a breaking point. Through the grapevine in the group chat, where I remained as a silent observer, I witnessed the final act of their Italian embarrassment unfold. It was 2 in the afternoon, the brutal Roman heat already bearing down. They hadn't slept in over 30 hours. They were filthy, severely dehydrated, terrified, and Mr. Cole was completely incapacitated. A panic attack, potentially facing arrest if the fines weren't paid. The U.S. Embassy finally intervened. A State Department representative arrived at the piazza escorted by a private transport vehicle, but this wasn't a rescue, it was an evacuation, because Mr. Cole was deemed unfit as a chaperone, and because multiple students had been cited for public disturbance. The embassy formally revoked the visas for the school trip. They were rounded up like refugees, their designer luggage unceremoniously tossed into the back of a van, then transported to a secure, windowless holding area in the airport. They wouldn't see the Colosseum, they wouldn't toss coins into the Trevi fountain, they would sit on plastic chairs and eat vending machine sandwiches for 18 hours. until emergency commercial flights could be booked to repatriate them to the States. The photos Samantha posted to her private Snapchat story, which someone immediately screenshotted and leaked, were poetic. Brittany Walsh, in designer clothes smeared with sidewalk grime, weeping into a coarse paper towel. Tyler Evans looking utterly defeated, sitting as far from Mr. Cole as possible. I spent the afternoon wandering the Uffizi Gallery, gazing at Botticelli's Birth of Venus, feeling a profound and beautiful sense of rebirth. I ate gelato on the Ponte Santa Trinita as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant violets and golds. I had never felt so alive, so free from the expectations of the toxic parasites I once called peers. 3 days later, arranged by my parents, who were fiercely protective, I boarded a first-class flight out of Florence. They wanted me to be as comfortable as possible after the harrowing escape. By the time I landed back in the States, the fallout had already begun. The wildfire was raging, uncontrollable. The school administration had called an emergency meeting of the Board of Trustees for Friday evening in the gymnasium. All senior parents were in attendance. The air in the room was thick enough to choke on. I walked in with my head held high. Flanked by my parents, I looked professional in a sharp blazer and dark jeans. I looked like an adult. Across the gym, the survivors of the Roman campaign huddled together. They looked gaunt, hollowed out. Their sunburns from a day of wandering the streets had begun to peel, revealing mottled, angry skin. They refused to make eye contact with anyone. Principal Higgins looked 10 years older, sweating on the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice echoing on the hardwood, "we are here today to discuss the debacle of the senior trip and to deliberate on disciplinary measures moving forward." The gym erupted, parents shouted over each other. Tyler's father boomed about his son's traumatic experience. Brittany's father, Thomas Walsh, stood and pointed a finger at Principal Higgins. "My daughter was abandoned," Thomas roared. "She was terrified, and we have a student here." He glared venomously at me, who fled the scene. There were resources there to help her classmates. My father was on his feet instantly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Don't you speak to my daughter, Walsh. Your child was the one screaming at police officers with loaded weapons." Felicia removed herself from a mob situation for her own safety. "Order, please maintain order." Principal Higgins slapped the podium. I stood up. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just walked. I descended the bleacher steps, pulled a flash drive from my pocket, and handed it to the IT technician sitting by the projector cart. "Principal Higgins," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the suddenly silent gym, "I think we need to understand the exact reasons why I left the group." I nodded to the IT guy. He plugged in the drive. The large projection screen behind the podium flickered to life. Not only did I save the video of the fight that Mark shot, but I also spent 2 full days meticulously organizing the group chat screenshots from months ago. The first slide was a screenshot of text messages between Brittany, Samantha, and Taylor discussing how they planned to proceed. They asked me to carry their extra shopping bags in Rome and called me their free mule. The second slide was, on the night before the trip, Samantha sent me a series of vicious texts, saying I was lucky they let me hang out with them, or else I'd be a pathetic loner. The third slide was a shaky video of Taylor physically assaulting Mr. Cole, leaving no room for doubt. Cole stood in the middle of the road while Brittany hurled insults at the chaperone. The gymnasium fell silent. It was absolute. The parents, who had been ready to tear the school apart, were suddenly faced with irrefutable facts. Behind closed doors, I truly understood what these kids were like. I didn't abandon my peers. I turned to face the crowd and spoke, my gaze locking directly onto Brittany's pale, terrified face. "I escaped from those who abused me. When the adults in power lost control and my classmates resorted to violence and illegal public behavior, I fled. After the riot broke out, I left an extremely dangerous situation, just like any responsible young person would." I shifted my gaze to Mr. Cole, sitting in the corner, staring at his shoes. "As for Mr. Cole," I continued, "everything was going smoothly. At 1:30 a.m., he tried to flee the scene with his luggage. He abandoned 30 minors just to book himself a hotel room. I believe the current Caribbean report, being handled by the State Department, reflects his negligence." Thomas Walsh slowly sat down, his face etched with humiliating defeat. He couldn't litigate his way out of a video that clearly showed his daughter's despicable behavior. nor could he defend a teacher caught fleeing. Felicia, Samantha whispered from the front row, tears streaming down her face. I didn't even glance at her. I walked back to the bleachers and sat between my parents. My mother squeezed my hand tightly, her eyes filled with pride. What followed was swift and brutal punishment, all of which I had brought upon myself. Harrison Cole was immediately fired by the school board. His teaching license was also under review by the state due to an Interpol investigation. He was cited for endangering children and negligence. He would never work as a teacher again. Tyler Evans was suspended until the end of the year due to video evidence showing him assaulting a staff member. His NCAA Division I football scholarship was revoked because the suspension was added to his permanent record shortly before graduation. The university officially withdrew his admission. He would attend the local community college in the fall. Brittany Walsh and her circle became social pariahs. The leaked group chat exposed their cruelty to the entire school. The girls they had previously bullied realized they no longer held any power. Brittany spent her final weeks of high school, eating lunch alone in her father's luxury car. Hiding behind staircases, Samantha Briggs called me over a dozen times. She left sobbing voicemails, begging for my forgiveness, claiming she had only gone along with it out of fear of Brittany. I blocked her number. Forgiveness is a luxury for those who show genuine remorse before being caught, not a life raft for cowards. They are being consumed by the consequences of their actions. As for me, I graduated as the valedictorian of my class. On graduation day, I walked across the stage under the bright stadium lights. I didn't look back at the hollow, despondent expressions on the faces of those who had once plotted my destruction. I was given a second life, a rare chance to rewrite a tragedy into a victory. Not only did I survive Rome's disaster, but I also watched as the fire they ignited consumed them. While I walked away unscathed, a soft sigh, as I flicked the tassel in my hand and gripped my diploma tightly, I finally let out a genuine exclamation of admiration, a smile, and this was precisely how I used my second chance at life to deliver the ultimate karma. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't to act with malice, but to step back and draw a clear line. Let toxic people destroy themselves. Story 2, I've transmigrated into a book, becoming an extremely beautiful extra. The entire book only has 4 lines of dialogue. You are the first woman the young master has brought back. It's been a long time since I've seen the young master smile. The young master's stomach trouble has flared up again, and so, on my very first day, I was out of a job. I had transmigrated into a minor character in a CEO novel, a character with almost no description, except for a single line. The old butler smiled with relief. The old butler said, "You are the first woman the young master has ever brought home." The old butler looked at the female lead with a relieved smile. It's been a long time since I've seen the young master smile. I stared in the mirror for a long time. This flawlessly beautiful face, was it really the old butler? I checked the lines again. Yes, that's right, I was the old butler. And it was a hereditary position in the family. My father was the CEO's butler, and after he retired, it became me. Today is my first day on the job. I stand in front of the floor-length mirror, impeccably dressed in a suit, admiring my own beauty. I calculate the time. Today is the day the CEO returns home. According to the plot, he'll be bringing the female lead back with him, in the afternoon. The sound of a car horn comes from outside. I go downstairs and see the CEO stepping out of the car with a man, by his side. The CEO's chiseled face carries a hint of aloofness, his eyes and brows filled with coldness, exactly as described in the book. They walk in one after the other. I stand there, stunned. I pause for a moment. Didn't I transmigrate into a romance novel? Please tell me what's going on. Follow the plot, or not follow the plot. Walking at the back, I looked at the CEO's chiseled face and the slight upward curve of his lips, and couldn't help but sigh. The young master hasn't smiled in a long time. My voice wasn't loud, but both of them turned to look at me. Glancing at the man behind the CEO, I blurted out another classic line, "You're the first man the young master has ever brought home." As the CEO's face grew increasingly dark, I heard him speak up, "Uncle." I was immediately taken aback, only to see the man the CEO called Uncle chuckle softly. He pointed at me and said, "This butler of yours is quite interesting." And so, I was let go. I arrived in the morning, and by the afternoon, my job was gone. As I left, The new butler was already in place, standing with his hands behind his back, looking quite pleased. Unbelievable, I just left and you're already on the job so quickly. Is the competition for this position that intense? When I got home, I was scolded to the point of being utterly humiliated. My dad looked at me with a mix of disappointment and frustration in his eyes. Bebe, tell me, how could you mess up such a great job? High pay, few responsibilities, great benefits, and it's hereditary. If I hadn't given you a younger brother, would this position have gone straight to your second uncle's family? That's right, my dad is also the old butler of the CEO's family. My mom is too. Our entire family has served the CEO, and those classic 3 sentences have become our family motto. And I was the first one to get fired and come back. My dad glanced at me, set down his teacup, and said, Bebe, you can't let your second uncle's family laugh at you. You need to find a new employer and get back to work as soon as possible. So I had only been home for a few days before I was kicked out to find a new job. According to family gossip, there are only a few CEOs in this city, and currently only 3 of them don't have a butler. The positions are scarce, and the competition is fierce. So the next day, my dad helped me schedule an interview. Good grief. This is even more intense than my old job. At the first interview, I went in, bowed, and started with the family's classic lines. My dad was watching from the side, shaking his head, not because he thought I wasn't good enough, but because he didn't think this client was good enough. You should know that my family has served domineering male protagonists who can cover the sky with one hand for generations. So when I went to the third interview, I straightened my back with a bit of toughness. But my dad still didn't think much of the third one. Great, my cheap dad standards are still quite high. It wasn't until half a month later that my dad pulled some strings and I finally got a new employer. Before leaving, my father earnestly analyzed the pros and cons for me, urging me not to get fired again under any circumstances. When I arrived at the new villa, I took a deep breath and memorized those 3 classic lines by heart, learning from my last mistake. After all, this is a romance novel. On the first day at my new employer's house, it was boring, and I had nothing to do. On the second day, my new employer still hadn't returned. On the third day, the new employer returned. I stepped forward, the classic lines rolling over and over on the tip of my tongue. This time, I wanted to carefully see whether he had brought back a man or a woman. Just like last time, a low-key sports car drove into the villa, and a long leg immediately stretched out. My gaze traveled from the bottom up, and I couldn't help but sigh at the tall, slender figure. Just how many domineering CEOs are there in this novel? It's outrageous how each one is so high quality. My eyes fell on the face, and my expression immediately stiffened. It was actually a familiar face. Damn it, Dad, I might lose my job again. Song Jiayue looked at me with a deep gaze, and then a sexy beauty stepped out of the passenger seat, dressed in a red dress. Her eyes carried a flirtatious charm, every smile and glance exuding allure. This time, I was a bit more cautious. I bowed respectfully toward them and said, Welcome back, young master. Song Jiayue swept his playful gaze over me, then headed upstairs with the beauty. The beauty seemed to ignore me completely, heading straight upstairs with Song Jiayue. During my time at home, I've come to understand that our family is a rather peculiar one. Once you take on a role, your identity and appearance are fixed, just like the uniform portrayal of the old butler in the book. In other words, no matter how good-looking I am now, in their eyes, I'm still the image of a loyal and honest old butler. Thinking of this, I immediately felt relieved. When I was at the CEO male lead's house, I couldn't even recognize my own brother. I doubt he could recognize me, someone he's only met once. I straightened my back, calculating that when the woman comes downstairs tomorrow, it will be time for me to play my part. I didn't expect her to come downstairs in just 10 minutes. Not even waiting until tomorrow. With a hint of dissatisfaction on her face, I quietly covered my mouth with my hand, my eyes filled with a touch of shock. So fast. So this CEO isn't quite up to the task. I escorted the beauty to the door, wearing a somewhat affectionate smile. You're the first woman the young master has ever brought home. You can't judge a man by his looks, especially not a CEO. No wonder the beauty's expression looked a bit off. I felt a pang of emotion in my heart. When I turned around, I saw Song Jiayue leaning against the balcony, watching me. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt, but I quickly composed myself. I straightened my chest, the buff of our family's old butler isn't something just anyone can see through. Even if my own father took over the role, I probably wouldn't recognize him, not to mention him. Song Jiyue. I crossed my arms in front of my chest, smiling as I looked at Song Jiyue. It's been a long time since I've seen the young master so happy. Madam and the master can rest assured now. Then I watched as the smile on his face instantly vanished. The person also hurriedly left. For many days after that, I didn't see Song Jiyue again. Every day as a housekeeper was incredibly dull. With too much free time, I even managed to squeeze in a trip home for a team-building event. I also met the younger brother who had taken over my position. Without the halo of the old butler, I immediately recalled him from the original owner's memories. He smiled shyly at me. Sister. After having dinner with the family, I diligently returned to my work post. In the afternoon, Song Jiyue came back again, this time bringing a different woman with him. Unlike the glamorous woman from last time, this one was the pure and innocent type, perfectly fitting the aesthetic of domineering CEO literature. This CEO may not be in great physical shape, but he certainly has a roving eye. It hasn't been long since the last one, and he's already changed again. Song Jiyue took the woman inside, and soon I could hear movement from within. A few minutes later, Song Jiyue emerged looking exhausted, while the girl's eyes were slightly red, appearing as if she had been thoroughly ravaged. He just glanced at me sideways. Arrange a room for Miss Jiang. Miss Jiang will be staying here for a while. I immediately nodded respectfully and led Jiang Ji upstairs, with her following behind me. Cautious and careful, she looked pitiful and helpless. I clasped my hands in front of me and pointed to a room on the second floor. Miss Jiang, you can stay here. The room next door is the young master's. I opened the door, and the interior was arranged in a conventional manner. Jiang Ji walked in, and I looked at her with a face full of satisfaction. Miss Jiang, you are the first woman the CEO has ever brought back. Jiang Ji turned to look at me, her eyes filled with pleasant surprise. Really? After saying that, she bit her lip. Brother Song is so wonderful. There must be many girls who like him, right? I let out a heavy sigh, thinking of our family's ancestral teachings. Apart from the 3 classic lines in the notebook, the most important rule is to treat every woman the CEO brings back as the future mistress of the house, because the hallmark of a domineering CEO is, she runs, he chases, she can't escape even with wings. He could fall for any woman he shows disdain toward. The first quality of a competent old butler is to be the CEO's second mouthpiece. I let out a heavy sigh. The young master has a hard life, growing up in such a huge villa. Besides being rich, good-looking, and flawless, there's nothing else that brings him joy. I see the young master is quite special towards Miss Jiang. Jiang Ji's cheeks flushed slightly as she murmured to herself, is that so? Seeing that my matchmaking efforts had been quite effective, I turned and left, quietly retreating with my accomplishment. Just as I reached the corner of the staircase, I saw Song Jiyue watching me with great interest. Lin Beibei, I paused, tilting my head up with a standard fake smile. Is there anything else you need, young master? Quickly stepping forward to meet him, Song Jiyue looked at me. You said the same thing about the last woman I brought back, didn't you? I froze, thinking to myself how unlucky I was. Was I about to lose my job again? Didn't the old father say that our family only needs to recite these 3 lines every day? Just be an emotionless NPC. What's going on? Why is this CEO so demanding? I smiled slightly and replied without changing my expression, young master. You remembered it wrong. His slender fingers tapped on the table. It was you too when I was at Song Hancheng's house, wasn't it? What did you say at the time? That I was the first man your CEO brought home. Suddenly, as if his interest was piqued, he asked, how many men has he brought home? This kid, I knew it. He's been single all this time. His sexual orientation must be abnormal. I secretly rolled my eyes and muttered, you think you're so normal. How presumptuous and abrupt can you be, Mr. CEO? On the surface, however, I showed no trace of emotion. That was my first day on the job. Song Jiyue paused for a moment, then tentatively asked, and then you got fired? I nodded with a mix of sorrow and indignation. My old man said I was a disgrace to the family of butlers. Song Jiyue waved his hand apologetically. Just work hard here from now on. The next day, Song Jiyue sat in the living room with a pale face. I saw it early in the morning. I knew this was one of the characteristics of a domineering CEO. Stomach problems. I stood in place waiting for Jiang Ji to appear. The words, "the young master's stomach problems have flared up again," had already circled in my mouth. But Jiang Ji's ghostly figure never showed up. Watching Song Jiayue break out in a cold sweat from the pain, he finally couldn't hold back any longer and gritted his teeth, glaring at me. "Lin Beibei, get me the stomach medicine." I shot a frustrated glance toward the upstairs where Jiang Ji was, thinking how could this person oversleep on the very first day. By the time I found the stomach medicine after rummaging through the villa for a long time, Song Jiayue had already passed out from the pain. I quickly contacted the family doctor, who turned out to be a handsome and young one. He is the CEO's good brother, a certain famous doctor. I don't know exactly where he's famous from, but he's definitely the kind that's really impressive. As soon as Song Jiayue woke up, Dr. Fu Han frowned and scolded. "How many times have I told you to take care of your health?" Song Jiayue waved his hand dismissively. "It's just an old problem." Then he gave me a cold, sharp look. "Come here." I shuffled over slowly. Seeing his grim expression, my heart skipped a beat. Was he going to fire me again? If I got fired this time, my old butler family would be utterly disgraced. My mind raced as I swiftly stepped forward and grasped Song Jiayue's hand. "Young master, has your stomach ailment flared up again? This old servant will be more attentive to your stomach from now on." He opened his mouth, about to speak, when a tear-streaked face appeared at the doorway. She rushed forward in a flash, bumping me aside with a thud, her eyes slightly red as she gently bit her lower lip. "Brother Song, it's all my fault for not taking good care of you." I rolled my eyes on the side. If you hadn't overslept, would he be lying in the hospital right now? Jiang Ji gazed affectionately at Song Jiayue, her clean and innocent face filled with self-blame. "It's all my fault. I'm to blame for not being able to sleep in a strange bed, which is why I got up late today." Her remorseful expression carried a hint of relief as she blinked at Song Jiayue. "Brother Song won't blame me, right?" "Bullshit." I clearly heard her snoring louder than a cow's moo when I passed by her room last night, at 10 o'clock. I was in the villa and was startled by her snoring. I said, "Where is that water buffalo bellowing?" I followed the sound upstairs and saw her sleeping like a dead pig. Who would have thought that beneath her delicate, flower-like appearance, she was actually a rough-and-tumble character? I nodded in agreement and chimed in, "Miss Jiang, there's no need to blame yourself like this. The young master isn't that petty." Jiang Ji's face was full of surprise as she looked at Song Jiayue, putting on an affected tone. "Really, Brother Song?" Song Jiayue glanced at me, then at Jiang Ji. Looking as if he had just eaten something disgusting, he raised a hand to rub his head and said, "Yes." Seeing the harmonious scene between the CEO and his little sweetheart, I, the butler, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I gazed at Jiang Ji with adoration, thinking to myself, "You little rascal, next time I won't spoil you like this." Since the domineering CEO's little sweetheart has appeared, it's only natural that I should step aside. As soon as I went out, Jiang Ji followed me. She came out and rolled her eyes, but halfway through, she saw me standing in the corridor and immediately froze. After a moment, she awkwardly glanced at me and muttered to herself, "Why is my eye twitching?" Then, as if suddenly noticing me, she said shyly, "Why are you here, butler?" I gave her a standard fake smile. I was just about to leave. I had to leave in a hurry, and as soon as I stepped out, she followed right behind me. I didn't have time to dodge at all. After I left, Song Jiayue returned within a couple of days, mainly because there was no one to take care of him in the hospital. He missed breakfast several times. I was a bit surprised when I found out. When did the CEO fall to such a state? What about Jiang Ji? I only found out what Jiang Ji was up to on the day Song Jiayue returned to the villa. She slept until the sun was high in the sky. How could she possibly have gotten up early to bring Song Jiayue breakfast? And now she was sobbing in the living room, wiping away tears. "Brother Song won't blame me, will he? It's all my fault for being too tired every day and not having time to bring you food." Song Jiayue held his head, looking pained, but still managed to say, "It's fine, it's fine." Seeing me arrive, he seemed to have found a savior. "Lin Beibei." I paused in my steps, looked at him, and smiled politely. "What can I do for you, young master?" He quickly said, "From now on, you'll be in charge of my meals." He gritted his teeth as he uttered the last three words. I couldn't help but glance at Jiang Ji, only to see her blinking her big eyes. Looking at me pitifully, I was just about to say that Song Jiyue shouldn't let Jiang Ji's heartfelt efforts go to waste, then came Jiang Ji's soft, delicate voice. Then I'll trouble you, butler. After speaking, she turned to look at Song Jiyue, gazing at him affectionately as she said, Brother Song, even though I didn't cook for you, in my heart, I still like you. Song Jiyue quickly stood up, flustered, and said, I need to go to the company, leaving only Jiang Ji and me standing there. She glanced at me, tears welling in her eyes. Butler, does he not like me? My words rolled around on the tip of my tongue again and again, until I finally swallowed back the thought that he might have been disgusted. I smiled and said, the young master has always been like this since he was a child, not very good at expressing himself. You are the first girl the young master has ever brought home. You must be special to him. Only then did Jiang Ji leave, sniffling and sobbing. At noon, Song Jiyue still hadn't returned. Song Jiyue did not return in the evening. The next day, Song Jiyue still did not return. The first day Song Jiyue was gone, I missed him. The second day Song Jiyue was gone, I still missed him very much. On the third day that Song Jiyue hadn't returned, I couldn't take it anymore. During the day, Jiang Ji would whimper and cry, and at night she'd come out and practically empty the entire fridge and kitchen. She made me go hungry several times when I went looking for food, but that's not the main point. The real issue is that during the day, whenever she saw me, she'd pull at me, crying and asking, why hasn't Brother Song come back yet? Does Brother Song hate me now? I'm just an NPC, okay? Why do you have to torment me like this? My already sparse hair is becoming even less lush. When she stopped me again, her eyes red and tearful, she asked, it must be because I made Brother Song unhappy. Her tears fell drop by drop. Looking utterly pitiful, I opened my mouth, about to suggest she go to Song Jiyue's workplace to find him, when I saw something fall from her pocket onto the ground. We both looked down simultaneously and froze instantly. I was quicker than Jiang Ji in picking up the eye drops from the floor. She glanced at me and said shyly, I've been crying too much lately, so I'm using eye drops as an emergency fix. I froze for a second, feeling a bit skeptical. Are all the innocent heroines in domineering CEO novels really like this? I haven't read many, so don't lie to me. I looked at her suspiciously, connecting her behavior in my mind, and an unrealistic idea popped into my head. Did you transmigrate here? I blurted out without thinking. Jiang Ji paused her hand. You too? I nodded, and Jiang Ji instantly seemed to unleash her true nature, plopping down on the sofa and crossing her legs. Jiang Ji glanced at me, suspicion in her eyes. Why do I feel like you've become better looking? Weren't you just acting all honest and sincere before? I raised my hand and touched my face. Was this because my old butler's persona had collapsed? She continued, whatever, I'm face blind anyway, except for that jerk Song Jiyue. I don't recognize anyone. After saying that, she picked up her phone and called Song Jiyue. You don't need to hide anymore. There aren't any outsiders at our place, so you can come back. I looked puzzled, and Jiang Ji immediately explained to me that they had known each other before they were transported into the book. Song Jiyue was reborn into this world from birth, while Jiang Ji had only arrived a short while ago. The system instructed them to adhere to their character settings, otherwise they wouldn't be able to return. They thought I was a genuine NPC, so they kept acting in front of me. In the end, Song Jiyue couldn't stand Jiang Ji's disgusting behavior anymore and ran away. Now that we're all on the same side, there's no need to keep up the act. Jiang Ji, with her innocent face, smiled at me and said, I've been acting so hard these past few days. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I rolled my eyes in exasperation. I was just testing the waters today. I just couldn't help but wonder what kind of female lead she was, so I blurted it out. Song Jiyue returned quickly, looking at Jiang Ji. He cautiously shifted backward, still shaken by what had just happened. Jiang Ji cooed sweetly, Brother Song. Song Jiyue immediately felt goosebumps all over. He quickly said, stop it, didn't you say there's no need to act since we're all on the same side? After speaking, Song Jiyue glanced at me. Lin Beibei, you're not an NPC. I nodded. I'm not. My gaze shifted between the two of them. According to the novel's plot, since they were childhood friends, They should be like childhood sweethearts, so why does Song Jiyue seem so disgusted with Jiang Ji? As if reading my thoughts, Song Jiyue moved closer to me, eyeing Jiang Ji warily. Don't be fooled by how delicate and fragile he looks. He's actually a man, male, I think my ears are broken. He said Jiang Ji is a man. Jiang Ji shot Song Jiyue a resentful look. So now you're disgusted that I'm a man, huh? You weren't like this when we first met, Song Jiyue quickly retorted. How was I supposed to know it was you back then? After the two of them had a fight and stopped, Jiang Ji, Song Jiyue, and I sat down to sort out the ins and outs of the matter. They both had a mission. They had to ensure the male and female leads had a happy ending before they could return. Then they turned their gaze to me. What about you, Lin Beibei? I thought for a moment. I guess I just need to see you two have a happy ending. So the three of us decided to speed things up and finish the plot quickly. Of the three of us, only Jiang Ji had seen the plot. When she started talking about what happened next, we all turned to look at her. Jiang Ji seemed a bit embarrassed to speak up. I was just bored at the time. And I clicked on an ad that suddenly popped up. Really, I'm not lying. I clicked on it without thinking and only glanced at it for a moment. Seeing that neither Song Jiyue nor I believed him at all, he raised his voice and said, all right, I admit it, I do enjoy reading this kind of stuff, but I'm a real man through and through, so don't you go getting any weird ideas. What's wrong with having a hobby? I'm just reading a novel, and besides, it might even help us get back faster. Song Jiyue crossed his long legs and leaned back slightly. Suddenly, I think the life of a domineering CEO isn't so bad after all. Jiang Ji glanced at me, and I smiled. Actually, being an old butler isn't bad either. Plenty of money, little work, and only 3 lines to remember. Jiang Ji snorted angrily. Fine, if none of you want to go back, then I won't go back either. Then she moved closer to Song Jiyue. Brother Song, please take good care of me for the rest of my life. Song Jiyue immediately shivered and stood up. I think there are too many NPCs in this world, and it's not realistic at all. Let's talk about what to do next instead. According to what Jiang Ji said, a malicious female supporting character would soon appear, and this important plot point probably couldn't be skipped. The malicious female supporting character liked Song Jiyue and then schemed to frame Jiang Ji. After the malicious female supporting character was written out, Jiang Ji and Song Jiyue could live happily ever after, so we all began to wait for the malicious female supporting character to make her appearance. After waiting for 3 months, the villainess finally made her appearance. The villainess, Lianin, is Song Jiyue's cousin. She has liked him since childhood and returned this time specifically for him. Lianin is the glamorous type, and like all female antagonists, she is flamboyant and beautiful. The moment she saw Song Jiyue, she threw herself at him. Song Jiyue stood still, his ears turning bright red, before my line could even leave my lips. I saw Jiang Ji dart forward in a flash, pulling Lianin aside, her eyes red as she demanded, Brother Song, who is this woman? Who is she? Jiang Ji's strength was immense, shaking Song Jiyue until he was dizzy, and finally shoving him hard. Song Jiyue stumbled, nearly landing flat on the ground. Just as he managed to steady himself, he heard Jiang Ji's voice ring out, say something. Song Jiyue opened his mouth, about to speak, when he saw Jiang Ji frantically shaking her head. I won't listen, she fiercely threw out a sentence, I hate you. Then she turned and ran off in an exaggerated, affected manner. The whole series of actions left me dumbfounded. Even Lianin was stunned. It took her a moment to snap back to reality. What's wrong with her? A flicker of regret flashed in Song Jiyue's eyes, and he immediately reached out, shouting, Gigi, let me explain. He also chased after Jiang Ji, leaving only me and Lianin behind. Lianin looked at me, then at Song Jiyue's retreating figure, her mouth hanging open for a long time. As for me, I clasped my hands in front of me, my gaze filled with affection. The young master hasn't laughed so happily in a long time. Lianin gave me a stiff glance, then turned and walked away. From that day on, Lianin never appeared again. When Jiang Ji mentioned Lianin, she nearly laughed herself silly. She grabbed my hand and said, Bei, you have no idea, that so-called villainess isn't the least bit malicious, she's actually kind of adorable. After she left that day, she went back and called Song Jiyue's parents, asking if he had been under some kind of stress lately. Later, Jiang Ji mentioned that Lianen had gone to the company several times, and each time she was there, the most intense incident happened in Song Jiyue's office. When Lianen arrived, they deliberately clung to each other in the office. Lianen's villainous supporting character persona instantly kicked in. She stepped forward, pulled Jiang Ji away, and tried to slap her, but Jiang Ji quickly dodged. However, true to her nature, Jiang Ji deliberately spun around and fell to the ground in slow motion, covering her face. She quickly tilted her head to put in some eye drops, then looked up at Song Jiyue with reddened eyes. "Honey, look at her, she hit me, honey, say something." What followed was Song Jiyue flying into a rage and driving Lianen away. Lianen left in tears and never appeared again. I heard that the proud Lianen has gone abroad. When she got the news, Jiang Ji was stunned for a moment. Isn't she the vicious supporting female character? How did she go abroad before even turning vicious? Then she thought that there might be some differences between what was written in the book and what actually happened. Even as an NPC, apart from the fixed plot, there would still be personal emotions. After Lianen left, the two of them began preparing for the wedding. The wedding went smoothly, and on the night of the wedding, the three of us were together in the bridal chamber. The three of us looked at each other, all waiting to be sent back to our original world. Jiang Ji told me their address over and over again. "Lin Beibei, remember it, you must remember it." I also told them my address, and they all nodded. It wasn't until midnight that a sudden wave of drowsiness hit me. The three of us exchanged glances, knowing it was time to go back. All three of us collapsed at once, the last second before I lost consciousness. I was still worried that if someone came and saw me sleeping with the bride and groom, they might misunderstand. When I woke up again, I was already at home. I quickly got up, washed up, and went to the address Jiang Ji had given me, but there was no one there, only a real estate development under construction. I lost contact with Jiang Ji and Song Jiyue. I even started wondering if all of that was just a dream. Life fell into a routine, and I began following the same three-point path every day. A colleague leaned in close and whispered, "Bebe, did you know, the company just got a new CEO, and he's really young. I heard he's not married and still single." I didn't even lift my eyelids. A CEO? I've seen plenty of domineering CEOs in novels before, so this guy is probably just ordinary, not to mention Song Jiyue and Song Hancheng. Even those domineering CEOs that my laid-off old butler father looked down on were all quite extraordinary. I opened my mouth and turned to reply, "You said the same thing when the manager first arrived last time." "Yes, he's single, but he's divorced and single. He is quite smart, so smart that he's almost lost all his hair." Chen Wan stuck out her tongue. "That time was a case of mistaken identity due to rumors, but this time it's not." As soon as her voice fell, the pot-bellied manager walked over, his face serious. "Everyone tidy up your workstations. The CEO is coming to inspect soon." 10 minutes later, the manager, with a flattering and ingratiating expression, followed beside a man. The man was tall and slender, and the suit looked exceptionally good on him. Chen Wan, standing next to me, nudged my hand. "Bebe, look, he really is handsome." I looked up and met a pair of deep eyes, somewhat familiar. He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "What's your name?" I lowered my head and replied, "Lin Beibei." Then I heard his voice. "My name is Song Jiyue." I looked up to see Song Jiyue smiling at me. After work, as I left the company, I saw Song Jiyue leaning against the car window. Exactly as I remembered, he called out to me, "Lin Beibei, long time no see." I smiled back at him. "Long time no see." Extra, Song Jiyue took me to meet Jiang Ji, or rather, Jiang Ji. He was a tall guy, standing at 1.8 meters, with the look of a tan sports student. When he saw me, he gave me a simple, honest smile, completely different from the Jiang Ji I remembered, but the moment he spoke, I was certain she was Jiang Ji. "Brother Song, you've finally found your Bei, haven't you?" "Perfect, it's her." Jiang Ji told me that after they returned, they started looking for me, but they discovered the address didn't match. I also told them about my attempt to find them. All three fell silent at once. It was likely that their memories had become distorted when they emerged, which was why they couldn't be found. Jiang Ji glanced at me. "You don't know, but over these past 3 years, Song Jiyue never gave up on looking for you. I even tried to persuade him, saying that you might be from another world, after all, we can all travel through time, so it's not impossible for something even more bizarre to happen. He just wouldn't believe it. Whenever he heard the name Lin Beibei, he would go check if it was you. I glanced at Song Jiyue in surprise, and he awkwardly turned his head away. Jiang Ji said that Song Jiyue came to my company because he saw my name at the branch office. Year later, Song Jiyue and I got together. I asked him with some confusion, Song Jiyue, you have such a heavy taste. Did you take a liking to me even when I was just the honest and simple old butler? Song Jiyue rubbed his nose and said, actually, what I saw was different from what they saw. What I saw at that time was exactly how you look now. I was stunned for a moment. Is this the halo of the male lead? Even the NPC's protective coloring is useless. He smiled at me. Perhaps this is fate. In my world, you are the heroine, and I want to be the hero of your world. I stood on tiptoe and gently kissed him. Of course, you always have been. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Transmigrated into the novel as the male lead secretary, right from the start. It was an explosive opening. Indescribable sounds came from the room. However, there are 3 minutes left until the meeting starts. I stood at the door, staring at it, unsure whether to knock or leave, wishing I could just spiral into the sky on the spot. In the end, I still knocked. Knock, knock, knock. The commotion inside abruptly ceased. I steeled myself and said, President Song, the meeting starts in 3 minutes. Get out. Something crashed against the door with a loud bang. Understood, President Song. I ran so fast I left a blur. In the conference room, standing behind the male lead, I watched his commanding presence fill the room and the serious expressions of my colleagues below, my thoughts beginning to wander. Can the male and female leads finish in 3 minutes? I thought romance novel heroes could go 18 times a night. As I thought, my gaze began to drift downward. Secretary Shao, a sinister voice sounded from beside me. I jolted awake with a start. What are you looking at? Looking at the male lead's dangerous gaze. I swallowed hard. Ah, it's nothing, nothing. I was just so moved by your commanding presence and thought you spoke exceptionally well. I got a bit too absorbed in listening. Humph. The male lead glanced at me with a half-smile, then turned away without saying another word. Instead, the colleagues sitting below all showed complicated expressions. I never expected you to be like this, Secretary Shao. I gave an awkward smile, lowering my head to avoid their gaze, but inside, I couldn't stop screaming. Ah, why is the female lead under the table? Ah! My eyes, that's all for today. Meeting adjourned. Everyone quickly left the conference room. Only I remained standing in place. Seeing me still there, the male lead frowned, his tone impatient as he said, Secretary Shao, is there anything else you need? Your professional skills have plummeted after just 1 day apart. What, are you thinking of changing jobs? A herd of 10,000 grass mud horses stampeded through my mind. If you hadn't burned my eyes, I would have reacted sooner. Okay, yet, she forced a stiff smile onto her face. I'll leave right now. Right now. Damn, money is hard to earn, and shit is hard to swallow. She'll endure it. Just as the door closed, indescribable sounds came from inside again. I felt speechless in my heart, as expected of an X-rated novel. It happens anytime, anywhere. I had just gotten familiar with my workstation and had taken a moment to pour a cup of coffee to calm my nerves. Before I could even sit down, someone rushed toward me. Secretary Shao, it's bad, just now. A young man barged in and went straight to the conference room. It looks like he's fighting with someone inside. They're fighting. I was startled and immediately ran towards the conference room. The male and female leads were still inside. Who else had gone in there? If anyone got seriously hurt, I might just lose my job. No, please. Even though the male boss is nitpicky and hot-tempered, the salary is really high. She just started and doesn't want to change jobs yet. Thinking of this, I quickened my pace, but when I reached the conference room door, I hesitated and stopped, looking at the anxious little assistant beside me. I felt at a loss for words. Are you sure there's a fight going on inside? The young girl quickly nodded. Yes, Secretary Shao, let's hurry in. Didn't you hear the girl inside screaming so pitifully? She must be getting beaten up. My head spun. Oh my God, damn it. She should have known that there wouldn't be any proper fighting in X-rated literature. Looking at the Innocent-faced girl in front of me, I coughed twice. Xiao Xue, I already know about this matter. I'll inform Mr. Song later. You can go back to work now. You did really well this time. If something like this happens again, make sure to let me know, okay? Hardworking and dedicated employees like you are rare these days. Trust me, you'll be the next chief secretary. Xiao Xue's face flushed with excitement as she shouted loudly, yes. Secretary Xiao. I was startled. The office fell silent for a moment, fearing that Xiao Xue might shout something else. I quickly coaxed her away. After walking around the office, I realized that no one else thought the noises inside were unusual. I was deeply shaken and, unwilling to give up, I circled the office again, even asking the staff nearby, "Did you hear any sounds?" My colleague looked at me blankly. "Huh? What sounds?" "All right, I've come to a conclusion. Everyone else, except for me, has selectively ignored the strangeness of the male and female leads. Even Xiao Xue only noticed because the man went in right in front of her. No wonder no one in the conference room earlier noticed the female lead under the table. Returning to my workstation with an indescribable feeling after a day of torment, unable to focus on work at all, I returned to my one-bedroom rental apartment. I glanced around the room. Nothing particularly special. That night, lying in bed, I carefully sorted through the memories in my mind, because I stayed up all night reading a novel. I ended up transmigrating into a pen novel. My boss, Song Yisher, the president of the Song Group, the man I saw in the conference room today, is one of the male leads. Yes, that's right, there are a total of 3 male leads in this book: Song Yisher, Song Yiyun, and Song Liang. Song Liang is the father of Song Yisher and Song Yiyun, the father and his 2 sons. The female protagonist, Song Wan, is the adopted daughter of the Song family. Song Liang's wife died early, so he adopted Song Wan, who bore a resemblance to his late wife. As the female lead grew older, several people were drawn to her sweet appearance and gentle personality, then coaxed the just-of-age female lead. Due to the many indescribable scenes in the book, my face flushed with embarrassment, and I only skimmed through a few pages, so I had no idea how the story would develop next anyway. I couldn't go back for a while, so I decided to focus on my work first. The second day of working with peace of mind, the third day of working with peace of mind, the nth day of working with peace of mind. Listening to the same daily commotion in the office, I finally broke down. Does the male lead not have to go to work? Be more careful in public. Don't you have a home? Why is my office area so close to the CEO's office? Someone, please save me. I can't take it anymore. I even dream of the male and female leads getting intimate beside me in the middle of the night. I turned my phone to maximum volume, played a loop of the great compassion mantra, and placed it at the office door. Finally, silence fell inside. Not long after, the female lead walked out with small, pigeon-toed steps. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes held a spring-like glow, and her clothes were slightly rumpled. Yet despite this clearly suspicious appearance, no one showed any surprise at her presence. This is so fucking absurd. It's like absurdity opening the door for absurdity. Absurdity has come home. This is completely unreasonable. Seeing the red marks on the female lead's neck, I frowned and picked up the clothes beside me to drape over her. The female lead stared at the clothes on her body, momentarily stunned. Then I whispered a thank you. I waved my hand. Just as I was about to leave, the 2 male leads walked out. The 2 looked somewhat similar, but the other man appeared older, with a hint of a refined yet corrupt air about him. It's Song Liang. As soon as the 2 of them stepped out, their gazes followed the female lead. When they saw me, they paused for a moment, then casually shifted their attention away. That afternoon, I had no idea what sudden whim had struck the male lead, but he told me to take the female lead with me for the time being. Ah, me, didn't you just ask me to look after your second aunt's third cousin's niece, Xiao Xue, a couple of days ago? I said with a troubled expression. Did I? The male lead paused for a moment. Never mind about that. Just take good care of Wan. Remember, if Wan loses even a single strand of hair, I'll hold you accountable. Understand? I'd actually like to know how you plan to hold me accountable. The corner of my mouth twitched, and I swallowed the friendly greeting that was on the tip of my tongue. With a blank expression, I nodded. I silently repeated to myself, everything for the paycheck, everything for the paycheck. Understood, President Song. I guarantee the task will be completed. Xiao Xue was assigned elsewhere by the male lead, while teaching the female Lead, I gradually reacquainted myself with the tasks the original owner had handled. After more than half a month, I finally mastered them completely. I am mainly responsible for the male lead's schedule, travel arrangements, and personal affairs management. Through this period of interaction, I have also roughly figured out the dynamics between the male and female leads and the reason why the female lead is here. Male lead's daily routine: when the female lead is not around, things are relatively normal. The female lead is here, starting to go crazy, whereas one, come here, woman, you are not allowed to leave me, do you hear me? The female lead's daily routine: I'm not, who help the male and female leads clean up their mess every day, am utterly exhausted. I feel like I've aged 10 years, and usually, just as I've dealt with one male lead, the next one shows up. It's hard to judge. That day, while I was showing the female lead around the office environment, I felt a scorching, oppressive gaze from behind. Another male lead. This male lead is somewhat younger than the other two. From the moment he entered, the room seemed to brighten a little. However, the female lead has been somewhat quiet since he came in. Seems like a tough character. I've been so thoroughly disciplined lately that I want to run whenever I see the male and female leads together. But the female lead grabbed my arm, enduring the man's displeased gaze. I continued introducing the job to the female lead. This is where the CEO usually rests, I said dryly, occasionally glancing at the female lead beside me. She kept her head bowed obediently, her expression hidden from view. Perhaps seeing that he couldn't drive me away, the man pretended I didn't exist. As soon as I came back from my vacation, I heard you want to leave us and go abroad. Are you tired of us and trying to get rid of us? I rolled my eyes. The female lead looked flustered and quickly shook her head. I'm not, I didn't. The male lead ignored the female lead's words and continued on his own. It seems we've been too lenient with you. We should have kept you in bed so you wouldn't keep thinking about running away. With a clatter, my cup fell. My goji berries, my red dates, my health tea. The man shot me an annoyed glance but ultimately didn't say anything more. Let's go eat. The man suggestively rubbed the corner of the female lead's lips. The female lead looked at him with a troubled expression. I'm not hungry yet. I don't want to eat. No, you do. In the end, the female lead couldn't resist him and followed along. Me, is this a proper meal? I stood there like a clown for a while, looking at the half-introduced materials in my hand, and then went to eat as well. I'm going for a proper meal. Shao Jia. Are you going to the team building at the end of the month? Oh, it's the end of month team building. Looking at my colleague's happy face, I felt a bit at a loss for words, because the male lead is going too. It's a famous resort villa in the city, few people, great facilities, and everyone else is very happy. I am not happy. A villa, few people, plus the male lead. If this were a horror movie, it would be the horror of horrors, and this is politerature, which makes it the pinnacle of politerature elements. I can already foresee the thrilling events that will unfold there with one man and 3 women. I don't want to go. The female lead doesn't want to go either. We both crouched at the stairwell, sighing as we looked at each other. Why don't you want to go? I asked the female lead curiously. She looked a bit troubled, but couldn't quite explain why, yet I understood. She has been indulging in too much pleasure lately and needs to slow down. If you don't want to. Before I could finish speaking, a voice came from behind. Don't want what? I was startled and nearly fell down the stairs. The female lead almost fell too, but the male lead swiftly wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her back. Then, ignoring the presence of others, the two began to get all lovey-dovey. Speak softly, what's on your mind? Seeing the two of them completely absorbed in each other, I decided to quietly slip away. My gaze shifted and met that of the male lead's father, Song Liang, who was standing at the door. His eyes roamed freely over me. So this is Secretary Shao. It seems Wan has been quite reliant on you lately. His gaze made me somewhat uncomfortable, sending shivers down my spine. I frowned slightly, feeling a surge of irritation inside, but the next second, the female lead suddenly let out a cry of surprise, drawing his gaze over. What's wrong, Wan? I think I twisted my ankle, came the female lead's coquettish voice from behind. Then let me blow on it for you. I gave the female lead a complicated look, then turned and walked away, but before I had taken more than a few steps, their voices came from behind me. I can't take it anymore. We're still outside. Please, for the love Of all that is decent, have some public decency. On the day of departure, I still came. The male lead specifically called to inform me that I must be there, otherwise, my salary would be deducted. After boarding the team-building bus, the female lead also got on. She even deliberately sat next to me. After sitting down, she looked at me as if wanting to say something but holding back. Seeing her look so constipated made me anxious for her, so I forced a smile and asked, "What's wrong?" She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Sister Xiao, you should stay away from my dad and brother. I don't like it when you get too close to them. I have such a short temper." Does she really think I would like them? If it weren't for the money, who would want to face those faces worn out by indulgence every day? Suppressing my anger with difficulty, I said, "Don't worry, aside from work hours, I'll definitely stay far away from them." "That's good. You know I'm about to enter into an arranged marriage, right?" The female lead suddenly spoke up. "Oh, I didn't know that. And is it really appropriate for you to tell me this? Is that so?" I forced an awkward smile. "Yeah, recently Dad and my brothers have started helping me choose a marriage partner." "Huh? Is this the plot?" After the author stopped updating, could it be that the male leads have finally grown tired of the female lead and are planning to switch to someone else? So, have you decided who to choose? Because of this speculation, I felt a twinge of sympathy for the female lead. I couldn't help but ask, "I've decided, we'll get married right after graduation." After a long pause, the female lead spoke softly. My eyebrows twitched. Wait, wasn't she just asking casually, "When did you make your choice?" "Just now." The female lead gave me a slight smile. Impressive, but I quickly regained my composure, mainly because there have been so many shocking things happening lately that I've become numb to it all. And as for the plot that follows, it might even be related to whether she can go back or not. Who could resist that? So, who did you choose? The eldest son of the Gu family, Gu Shen. Wow, just hearing the name, it's clear he's another tycoon in the making. Then I widened my eyes. Gu Shen, that Gu Shen. The female lead nodded again. My pupils trembled in shock. This was truly, the Gu family is even more formidable than the Song family, where the male lead belongs. Gu Shen was groomed from a young age to be the heir of the Gu family. She had long heard others say that he was a prodigy since childhood, and by the age of 30, he had developed the Gu group to a terrifying scale. Moreover, he is also exceptionally handsome. Logically speaking, such a person in a pen novel would undoubtedly be destined to be the male lead, but he was in a car accident a year ago and became a vegetable. You want to marry a vegetable? Why him? The Gu family specifically had a fortune teller, who said that I and the eldest young master of the Gu family are a match made in heaven. As long as I marry him, he is very likely to wake up. At this point, the female lead pursed her lips. Hearing this absurd piece of information, I couldn't quite bring myself to laugh. I looked at the female lead with sympathy. To be married off to a stranger, and a vegetative one at that, then, I felt my sympathy was rather inexplicable. What right do I have to pity the female lead? I'm just a lowly wage slave. The money I earn in a lifetime might not even be as much as what she spends on food. Normally, the female lead also said that as a foster daughter of the Song family, she has received over a decade of nurturing from them. For the sake of the Song family's future, marrying into that family is what she should do, so I just can't understand it. Okay, how can you repay kindness like this? I couldn't help but look at the female lead. Are you really willing #%? The following words turned into a jumbled mess. I stubbornly said it again, but still couldn't get it out. Just then, a loud shout came from ahead. "We're here," perfectly drowning out my voice. The female lead looked up in confusion. "Sister Xiao, did you say something just now?" I paused for a moment and shook my head. In the end, I couldn't help but ask, "Does President Song and the others know about it?" The female lead looked at me with an inexplicable expression. I understand anyway. The female lead is going to be married off, and the eldest son of the Gu family is now a vegetable, completely incapable of doing anything to her. For the Song father and son, this was like a pie falling from the sky. They could both preserve the female lead's purity and take the opportunity to swallow up the Gu family. It was simply a case of killing two birds with one stone. The only one who got hurt throughout was the female lead. Thinking of this, I frowned slightly in discomfort. To them, the female lead was more like a tool. For the rest of the vacation, I stayed in the hotel. The female lead came to see me twice. During that time, but she was quickly taken away by the male lead and the others. I've tried to keep the female lead, but I've failed every time. It seems I can't interfere with the main plot, and I still don't know the female lead's specific thoughts, which makes it difficult. However, after this incident, my relationship with the female lead has improved a lot. I finally received my first paycheck after transmigrating. Seeing the several zeros on the pay stub, I grinned from ear to ear with joy. Noticing the obvious envy in the female lead's eyes, I waved my hand grandly. Come on, I'll treat you to a meal. Let's go to that new place on East Neighbor Street. Great. However, after seeing the price list, the smile vanished from my face. Who made this price list? Bad review. One meal costs as much as half a month's salary for her. Perhaps the female lead could tell I was feeling the pinch, so she only ordered a few of the cheapest items. Miss Xiao, just these few items will do. I'm not very hungry. I was deeply moved, looking at the female lead with teary eyes, and promised, when I make it big in the future, I'll treat you to meals every day. Okay, the female lead nodded shyly. I've always been spending my father and brother's money before. Although they would deposit money into my card, I've never experienced the joy of receiving a salary like Miss Xiao does. I screamed in my heart, I don't want happiness. I want money. Can you give me the money? I'll spend it for you. And most of the time, I can feel that I'm not an individual, just their accessory, like a pet. When they're happy, they say a few nice words to me, and when they're not, at this point, the female lead's expression turned somewhat gloomy. I also fell silent, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, it didn't stay quiet for long before the food arrived. Just as the food was served, the male lead appeared. Wan, why are you here alone? Eating so poorly? Did I not give you enough pocket money? Watching the male lead casually wrap his arm around the female lead's waist as if no one else was around me. Fine, you're all so noble, you're all human, and I'm just a corporate slave. The female lead, her face flushed red, tried to break free. No, Sister Xiao is still here. Today, Sister Xiao got her paycheck and specially treated me to a meal. Only then did the male lead seem to notice me, turning his head to glance at me. Turning back, she continued, oh, it seems Wan really likes Sister Xiao. What should I do if I get jealous? Watching the two of them almost glued together and the seemingly oblivious crowd around, I cleared my throat. Ahem, Mr. Song, I think Miss Wan is already hungry. Why don't we eat first? The male lead looked at me with displeasure, his eyes signaling for me to leave quickly. I lowered my head, pretending not to see his gaze. Just kidding. I've bled so much today and haven't even started eating yet. And you want her to leave? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. In the end, the male lead still restrained his teddy bear behavior. I also ordered many other dishes. I pretended not to see his murderous gaze and ate happily by myself. I didn't stop until I was completely stuffed. I don't usually eat this much, but since someone else was paying, and it was someone I dislike, I figured I might as well take advantage. The female lead also looked at me with some surprise. Are you two still eating? The female lead shook her head. I then looked toward the male lead. Great, the male lead completely ignores me. Then I'll just do as I please. Waiter, I'd like this to go. The people around me looked at me curiously, probably because they rarely see someone asking for a doggy bag in a place like this. Feeling the gazes from all around, the male lead's face was practically green. Enough is enough. The male lead gritted his teeth and said, I just thought it would be a waste to leave so much uneaten food. As the saying goes, who knows that every grain in the bowl. Before he could finish, the male lead grabbed the female lead and left. The female lead looked at me with an apologetic expression. I waved my hand, not minding at all, not having to pay. I couldn't be happier. Ugh, another day of hating capitalism. That day, the female lead suddenly told me that the Gu family hoped she could spare some time every day to talk with the Gu family's eldest young master, helping him wake up better. Sister Xiao, why don't you come with me? It's not like there's anything to do at the company anyway. That hit hard, buddy. Looking at the female lead blinking her big, beautiful eyes, I couldn't bear it, and refused. Just kidding, I have to go every day. Where would she find so much time? If you go, I'll have my brother raise your salary. Where would I find so much time? Of course I have it. I have plenty of time, and I'm good at things like bedside care. Tell me, when are we leaving? The female lead covered her mouth and chuckled, but in the And it was still the female lead who went alone. I only occasionally went to the hospital to take a look, because the Song family recently landed a big order. The company's workload had increased. That day, I had just finished handling the documents on my desk, stretched lazily, when the male lead suddenly appeared behind me. Secretary Xiao, go to the hospital now and see what One is up to. Okay, President Song. Even though it wasn't my first time here, I was still stunned by the luxury of this private hospital. The Song family was already wealthy enough, but compared to the Gu family, they still fell far short. No wonder the male lead and the others wanted to swallow up the Gu family. When I arrived at the room, the female lead was happily chatting with the vegetative patient on the bed. I shrugged, unfazed, glanced around, moved a chair to the corner, and started munching on some fruit. The female lead was chattering away beside me. While I was munching on fruit over here, it had quite a rhythmic feel to it, just as I was happily munching away. The female lead turned around and looked at me with a rather indescribable expression. I paused, then showed a look of sudden realization. All right, message received. Over. I gave the female lead an okay sign and then slowed down my apple munching pace. Click, clack, click, clack. Over time, the female lead automatically filtered out my noise. She began to wholeheartedly care for her so-called fiancé. Let me give you a massage. I've heard that lying down for too long isn't good for the body, and massages can help prevent muscle atrophy. What kind of music do you like? Is this song okay? Or maybe I can put on a movie for you. How about a horror film? I was completely baffled, watching the female lead play a horror movie for the comatose patient. Just then, the male lead sent a message. What is she doing? Watching the female lead enthusiastically picking out a horror movie. I swallowed hard. To be completely honest, it feels like showing a movie to a vegetative patient. Perhaps the situation was too abstract for the male lead to grasp, so he arrived 20 minutes later. Then I was driven outside. What kind of person does that? Listening to the inexplicable sounds from inside, accompanied by the horror movie, my gaze went vacant, entering a state of transcendence and self-forgetfulness. The male lead is really too inhuman, actually doing that in front of a vegetative patient, but at least he had a bit of conscience, only coming that one time. The female lead still accompanied Gushin every day, talking to him and giving him massages, would occasionally come over, just eating snacks, playing games, scrolling through my phone, and chatting with other people in the hospital. Soon, I had chatted with every doctor and nurse in the hospital. Even the janitor at the entrance would ask me, "Have you eaten yet, dear?" That day, the female lead finished chatting with her fiancé as usual and suddenly spoke up. When are you going to wake up? If you don't wake up soon, the Gu family business is going to change its name. I was startled. Are the Song father and son moving that fast? But this matter can't be rushed. To be honest, I think the probability of a vegetative patient regaining consciousness is quite low. However, to avoid dampening the female lead's confidence, and considering this is a poor world, what if anything is possible? Another long wait. The sunlight streaming through the window and filling the room, warming the heart. When I first arrived, it was just the beginning of spring, and now autumn is almost here. I sat in the corner, drowsy and half asleep. The female lead went out to push the wheelchair. She said the weather is nice today, and later she can push Gushin out for a stroll in the yard. Lately, she has been enthusiastic about taking Gushin outside to bask in the sun. Several times when I came to see her, she was in the yard. I stayed up late last night reading a novel and didn't sleep until 5, so I was too tired to go with the female lead, and I don't see why a vegetative patient would need to go out for a stroll. Suddenly, a man's hoarse voice broke the silence in the quiet room. Water. I thought I was hearing things, but then it came again. Water. My drowsiness vanished completely, and I nearly fell off the stool. I rushed to the bedside in a few quick steps, staring in disbelief at the man on the bed. You actually woke up so quickly. It hasn't been long at all. This is nothing short of a miracle. Just then, the female lead returned. She appeared at the door pushing a wheelchair, her smile serene and gentle, as beautiful as a painting. Sister Xiao. She looked at me with some confusion as I stood by the bed. I pointed to the bed, and then she saw Gu Shen, who had woken up. Her eyes instantly widened, and she ran over with red-rimmed eyes. Mr. Gu, you're awake. Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Should I call a doctor? Water. Oh, right. Water. The female lead quickly turned around to pour Water, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Gushin scrutinizing the female lead with a critical and evaluative gaze. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could react, the female lead had already brought over the water. Mr. Gu, here's your water. Afterward, I tactfully mentioned to the female lead, don't be too upset. As the saying goes, three-legged frogs are hard to find, but two-legged men are everywhere. If he doesn't like you, just find someone else. The female lead looked at me with some surprise. Who said I like him? Isn't that the case? I was somewhat taken aback. Then why have you been persistently trying to wake him up all this time? I don't like him. As for why I want him to wake up, you'll find out later. Alright, as long as you don't like it. When Gushin woke up, the happiest people were undoubtedly the Gu family and the female lead, though I don't know why the female lead is so happy, but I do know the most unhappy ones are the Song father and son, because of Gu Shin's awakening. They ended up losing both the wife and the troops. Moreover, after Gu Cheng woke up, aside from the Gu family members, he only requested the female lead to stay by his side. The faces of the Song father and son turned green with anger at the strong insistence of the female lead. I also stayed behind, standing at the door right now, looking at the young man in black beside me. I gave a friendly smile. Great. The guy is very aloof and completely ignores me. We stand on either side of the door. Like two door gods, the ward fell silent. Were the things you said while I was unconscious true? What's true or false? I was still a bit confused about the situation when the female lead suddenly spoke up. Yes, everything I said is true, Mr. Gu. You will have a car accident, and I will be noticed by your grandfather. All of this is the work of the Song family. They have long wanted to replace the Gu family. I stood trembling at the door. Will I be silenced? I've heard something so important. This door isn't very soundproof. Huh? I awkwardly smiled at the guy in black. The guy remained aloof as ever, as if he were deaf. As the female lead finished speaking, Gu Shin's expression turned inexplicable. How can you prove what you're saying is true? The once delicate female lead now had a determined glint in her eyes, speaking with clarity and purpose. I looked into the truck that hit you. Before the driver died, a huge sum of money was deposited into his account. His wife and son left the city with that money after his death. You should trace the source of that money. I'm 95% certain it was Song Liang who did it. That day, he used a new phone to call someone and immediately brought up money, Gu Corporation shares, and your name. After that, I never saw that phone again, and after your accident, the Song family immediately arranged a marriage alliance with the Gu Corporation. Several of Gu Corporation's partner companies started collaborating with the Song family right after your accident. All of this is evidence. More importantly, the Song family told me it would be best to slip you something quietly, so you'd never wake up again. Gu Shin's expression turned severe as he looked at the pale yet resolute girl before him. Aren't you the Song family's adopted daughter? How could you betray them like this? The female lead met his gaze, her expression stubborn, her eyes red-rimmed. Yes, that's right. I am the Song family's adopted daughter, but they are also my enemies. At this point, the female lead suddenly covered her face with both hands and broke down in tears. I didn't have to become an adopted daughter. I had parents and an older brother too. They killed my entire family. Why should I help them? I wish I could tear them to pieces. It turns out that the female lead's parents and brother were just like Gu Shen. First, the Song family hired someone to run them over, leaving them in a vegetative state. Then they snatched away their business partnerships, swallowed up their assets, and drove their family into bankruptcy. Finally, they hypocritically adopted her, winning everyone's favor. If she hadn't accidentally overheard the truth, she might have continued to treat her enemies as family. Listening to this, I felt a bit shocked. It seemed these details weren't mentioned in the original story. Then again, in a pornographic novel, the female lead doesn't need thoughts or family. All she needs is the male lead's affection. At this thought, I suddenly felt disgusted by everything in this world. Mr. Gu, the Song father and son caused your car accident, turning you into a vegetable and nearly letting the Gu family fall into their hands. Don't you want revenge? Gu Shen's expression turned grim. The female lead continued to press on. Moreover, I've discovered that the Song family's tax affairs have had major issues over the past few years, which is also why they're so eager to swallow up the Gu family. You can start from this angle. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. I can also help. as long as you can bring down the Song family. Gu Shen looked at the woman before him, and he had to admit that she had sparked a great deal of interest in him, clever, decisive, patient, skilled at exploiting human nature yet knowing when to show vulnerability. I agree to your terms. After this matter is settled, I will marry you and make you Mrs. Gu. As a reward for taking care of me for so long. He had actually felt a bit uncomfortable before. During the time he was in a vegetative state, he could hear the sounds from the outside world and knew what she and her so-called fathers and brothers had done by his bedside. But now, the mistress of the Gu family doesn't need to be too pure, just smart enough. I can hardly believe what I just heard. A reward? Who does he think he is? Are there no normal men in this crappy story? Sure enough. The female lead was also left speechless by his confident remarks. I have no desire to covet the identity of Mrs. Gu. I only hope that after everything is over, you will let me leave and promise not to interfere with anything in my future. It was a long time before the female lead finally spoke. Gu Shen frowned, looking at the female lead as if he wanted to say something. After a long silence, just when I thought he might resort to force against the female lead, he nodded and agreed to her request. As you wish. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed this man could still understand reason. When we left, the female lead leaned weakly against me, almost being dragged along as we walked. Miss Xiao, you'll help me, right? As we walked, the female lead suddenly spoke up. I sighed and nodded under her pleading gaze. At the same time, I sighed inwardly. She must have had her eye on me from the very beginning. No wonder she deliberately played the weak card in front of me earlier. However, I don't dislike the female lead's approach. On the contrary, I admire her for being able to find a way to break through such a difficult situation. The process of stealing the information went too smoothly. As a seasoned bookworm with 18 years of reading experience and a frequent visitor to various domineering CEO novels, although I don't know the exact location of the items, I can guess. Sure enough, with my clever wit and the female lead's protagonist halo, we successfully stole the company's confidential documents. Don't take the novel world seriously. In reality, you'd go to jail. When we handed over a large pile of materials to Gu Shen, he gave me a somewhat surprised look. I smiled faintly, keeping my achievements and reputation well hidden. Next, it was time to wait. Had a feeling that when everything was over, it would be time for me to go back. During this time, to avoid alerting the enemy, the female lead still had to stay at the Song family's residence. I'm not sure if the male lead and the others discovered something, but the marks on the female lead's body have increased significantly. After learning about the female lead's hatred for the Song family, it saddens me to see her maintaining a calm expression every day while dealing with those disgusting G family father and son. But I also know that the female lead can't possibly move out at this critical juncture. Previously, when the female lead found a job in a neighboring city, she was punished for it. If she were to move out now, the male lead would likely go completely mad. I was born in a time of peace and have never encountered the kind of things the female protagonist has. In the past, if someone groped someone on the subway, a whole crowd would step in to help. I really don't know how the female protagonist has made it through all these years. Before, I only saw this as a piece of online fiction. When I first arrived in this world, I viewed everything with a playful mindset. It wasn't until I had gone through so much that I realized the female lead was not just a two-dimensional character. She is gentle, kind, intelligent, and especially resilient. She faces adversity head-on. She possesses a beautiful character that many people lack. Looking at the female lead, I said sincerely, "You will definitely become a remarkable person." "Really?" the female lead asked, a bit shy but with bright eyes. "I hope so too." That day, just as the female lead and I had finished eating and were about to head home, the car had just reached an intersection when a vehicle came speeding toward us. With a loud crash, the two cars collided, and I lost all consciousness. When I woke again, everything around me was pitch black, my head was spinning, and when I touched it, my hand came away covered in a sticky, viscous liquid. It must have been blood. Where is this? There was no time to observe the surroundings, as the female lead's scream came from ahead. "Ah, don't come any closer, don't come any closer, you ungrateful wretch. The Song family raised you for so long, and you actually teamed up with outsiders to harm us. If only I had killed you back." Then, with that, he grabbed Song Wan by the throat. "Tell me, what good did it do you to bring down the Song family, huh? It was Song Liang, the stepfather of the female lead. The female lead's struggles grew faint. I'll make sure you don't see tomorrow. Song Liang's eyes were bloodshot. MMPH, Wu, let me go. Seeing the female lead's voice grow faint, I was so furious my eyes turned red and my head spun. Without thinking, I grabbed a brick from the ground and charged forward. While they weren't paying attention, I swung the brick and smashed it against Song Liang's head. Ah, you little wretch, I'm going to kill you. Song Liang was covered in blood from head to toe. I picked up a brick and gave him another crack on the head, sending him straight to the ground. Unable to get up, I looked up at the others. One of them had just raised his hand when I kicked him out. The rest of them all took a step back in unison. We're just here to tie people up. Whatever's between you has nothing to do with us. With that, they ran off. After they left, my legs gave way, and I collapsed to my knees. This body is too weak. That kick earlier nearly drained all my strength. After resting for a moment, I turned and crawled toward the female lead. It's okay, it's okay. I patted the female lead's shoulder to comfort her. Wah wah wah. After a while, the female lead calmed down. Two girls held each other close to keep warm. Soon, the sound of police sirens echoed from outside. I had just breathed a sigh of relief and was about to pull the female lead out when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the person beside me move slightly, as if reaching for something. My eyes narrowed, and I kicked his hand away in an instant. Ah! With a sharp cry, a dark object flew out. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a gun. My scalp tingled with fear, and I gave him a few more kicks. If I hadn't reacted quickly, wouldn't I have been killed by him? The female lead also came up and started punching and kicking him, crying and laughing at the same time. You killed my parents and brother, you bullied me, you did all those bad things. I'll beat you to death, until several police officers pulled her away. When everything was finally over, I couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Just before I lost consciousness, it seemed like a cry of alarm sounded nearby. Sister Xiao. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I was back. Looking at the familiar furnishings in the room, I rushed out and flung open my parents' bedroom door, only to cause a commotion and get chased out again. Not sleeping in the middle of the night. What kind of madness is this? Day after day, my mother's angry voice echoed in my ears, but I felt a wave of relief. I'm back. The phone still displayed the page of that trashy novel I hadn't finished reading. I eagerly flipped to the end and discovered that the continuation had already been released. The female lead, Song Wan, used the Gu family's influence to uncover tax issues within the Song family's company, sending both Song father and son to prison. Then, the female lead went to the graves of her parents and brother. Placing the white bouquet before the grave, she wept uncontrollably. After a long silence, Dad, Mom, Brother, I've finally avenged you. Finally, the female lead walked out into the glow of the setting sun. After flipping through the original text a few more times, she realized her own character did not exist. From the description later in the text, it seems the female lead doesn't remember herself either. I was stunned for a long time, but finally felt relieved. Perhaps it's for the best. I never should have existed in that world in the first place. Besides, she believed that someone as resilient and intelligent as the female lead could live well even on her own. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.